been shared, so that's
There we go.
it. Okay, now it is. Now it's saying it's live on YouTube. Did you just
All
put?
right.
Did you just pick it up?
Yeah, now we got everything going. So hopefully we're
Okay,
going live now, guys.
cool.
All right, there we go.
All right.
So
There we go.
okay,
There we
now it
go.
is. Now it's saying it's live on. Now it's rocking and rolling.
We're live. I
We're
swear to God,
live.
after doing this show for so many times, you think we'd figure this out by now. But like we said, starting the show, guys, and we apologize to anybody who's tuned in right now that doesn't see us live on Facebook on our page. Hopefully, we can get ourselves over there. We're currently being restricted by Facebook for sharing our banner for the show, which kills me, right? Um, so we can't do anything for 3 days. So please bear with us. I think Tom is on top of that right now.
Yeah, I'm sending over to Facebook right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Thomas. Again,
Tom, make
guys,
sure you tag me.
Got it.
here we go. We got another great show for you guys today. We have Thomas Marcom of Vermont Grow Coaching, our Growers Guide weekly coach that is going to bring us another great Growers Guide episode later in the show. So, guys, thank you for Thomas for being here. We have Timothy Fair from Vermont Cannabis Solutions. Our legal representative, our Vermont lawyer for the cannabis industry. And we'll be talking to him about everything legal, some of the recent news. And again, I can't wait for him to discuss some of the discussions we're going to have today within laws and ways we can work within our industry and invest in literally everything. Cimone is amazing at being. Like, you have a huge background. And also, I want to give a quick shout out to, we're going to have a co-special guest, I guess, Danica, who's been on the show before. Who couldn't wait to be on the show today and be a part of it. So we'll welcome you, Danica. Thank you for being on the show today.
I want to piggyback off of that, and I want to thank Joe so much for letting me genuinely be annoying and be a part of this, because you, and I became obsessed. So I'm grateful to be a part of this amazing community and everything that Joe has set up. So.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. We try to bring people out with different perspectives of the industry, so it becomes a really unique just conversation. And hopefully have a great conversation today. Again, guys, go find everybody on Facebook, like them, love them, Instagram, they're everywhere. Again, and now we have our special guest, which I've been really excited about this for weeks. We've been talking a little bit on and off here. I've been following the work that you do. We had a good friend of yours, Leo Bridgewater, on a few weeks ago, a month ago now, that it was one of those shows I'm going to remember deeply. I've talked to Leo before doing the show, and every time I've talked with him, he's such an amazing man that everything he said resonates with me. So when he was on the show, it was really great. Now, you have an association with him as well through different causes and things that you guys work with, right? Agencies.
Yeah, we do.
Which is great, which we'll talk about, right? You have a laundry list of things that you do, which is really unique because it's a little bit of everything, right? So for the people that don't know who you are, just introduce yourself really quick. Tell them what you do, who you are, and like literally how, like for us, it's how did you get started doing this with cannabis?
Okay, cool. So my name is Cimone Casson. I'm known as the dope chick or the cash counselor, money problem solver, the dopest chick on your timeline, right? And so I've been in the cannabis industry since 2017, and that was right around the time when Michigan was going for Prop 1, where they were going into recreational, right? And so people say all the time, "Oh my God, Cimone, you do so much." No, I don't. I only talk about three things: money, stocks, and weed. It's the same conversation all day, every day. You know it. So how I got started in this is that I had been a former financial advisor in Chicago, lived there for 20 years, right? And managed about $100 million in assets at that time. But I was not happy. Like, and that sounds crazy, right? I just wasn't happy. I didn't like the corporate plantation. It just wasn't my thing. And I decided that I was going to go independent. And while going independent, I ended up coming back to Michigan. And I actually grew up in Michigan, in a small town, Muskegon, Michigan, which is where I am right now. If anybody knows, y'all watch the look. That's how people are like, when you go to camp in Michigan, this is how you tell where you are. You point to the hand, right?
Yeah.
So, so I moved back to Muskegon, Michigan, and at that time there was a lot of talk about about medical marijuana 2008. So we had a lot of card holders. And I was hearing the buzz. I was hearing about it going recreational, but I was still thinking, okay, I'm this savvy financial advisor and I'm going to just go in and get all of these people's money and I'm going to manage it. And it did not work out like that. They didn't want nothing to do with me. Every door I knocked on, I went to City Hall. They didn't want to be bothered with me. Went to the schools. So everything that I did, it didn't work. So I had a friend of mine that was sitting there talking to me. They said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to insure weed businesses. And they said, can you do that? I said, shit, I don't know, but I'm going to try. And what I realized was that cannabis businesses, one of the things that, and it's still an opportunity, is that cannabis businesses could not obtain banking and they could not obtain lending. And so the only thing that solidified them financially as a business was insurance. So I went in and I started Googling, and I think at that point in time, it might have been maybe 10 insurance agencies in the whole United States that did anything with cannabis. So I started to do my research. Well, after I established everything for the business, the big opportunity was, guess what? It ain't no damn businesses. Nobody was licensed anymore. Everybody who had been medically licensed, most of those businesses had closed because they couldn't keep up with the new laws. And then the new ones that were going in inception for recreational, they weren't open. So guess what? I was broke again and I didn't know what to do. But I remembered that I had invested $980 and when I was managing money, I got an insurance commission. It was about $980, and I took that and I bought Canopy Growth. I bought Aurora Cannabis and a bunch of other ones, and I had turned this portfolio into $20,000 in just cannabis in 3 years. There were some things I did right and some things I did wrong. So what I said was, I can teach somebody else to be able to do this, to be able to understand that it was an emerging market and that there were some general ideas, but some strategies that you could put in place to be able to make money in the cannabis space. So that kind of evolved. Before I knew it, I was the president of Minorities for Medical Marijuana. And then I started to travel all over the United States, teaching people how to invest and how to build businesses ancillary in the cannabis space. Then I became the chairwoman for a bunch of different organizations. Now I sit as the chairwoman for the Michigan Marijuana Regulatory Association, their racial equity in business and development, where I have some big projects there. I also sit on the risk management and insurance for the National Cannabis Industry Associations, and then I do a lot of community development in my state, where we help all individuals try to participate in the green rush.
I love it. And you talk about the green rush as well. So it's something we don't talk about a lot in this show. And, you are, centralized, you're Central America based, right? You're in Michigan, which is something, we talk.
Yeah, Michigan, Illinois. We're licensed in Michigan, Illinois, and Massachusetts.
So, I mean, we talk about the actual, like, how do people get insured in this industry, right? Like, that's one of the biggest things that we worry about in this industry. And how do people literally get covered? And what does even coverage look like? We talk about like farms under the farm bill, right? Do you work with hemp farms as well, or is it just
yeah, we do, and we got a new product. So that's a great question. So let's look at it like this. First of all, there is no state. Okay, so insurance is state governed. And banking and all of the other stuff usually is federal government, unless you are a state charter. So let's just break that down. There is no state that you can receive a cannabis license without insurance. It is mandatory. Period. You can't even receive your final certification or final license, and that goes without every state. Most of them usually consist of an aggregated, which means all together, insurance package, which is $1 million or more, right, to be able to solidify. In addition to that, many states and many municipalities may require for your business to have a financial responsibility of maybe $100,000 or more, and those can be obtained via surety bonds. but every state is going to make it mandatory because that's the one thing that they can control. See, states, I mean, you have to be able to protect yourself, but not only that, you have to be able to protect and be able to provide for the consumer. So, general liability, property and casualty. And to your point, there are now hemp is now federally legal, so that's a wonderful thing. Now there are subsidized insurances that are out there, which means that the government pays 50% and the actual farmer pays another. Before that, it would only you would have to have corn or you would have to have tomatoes or whatever, and to be able to meet that. Now you can be able to go under that. The cool thing about it is that our company actually has a product that is wonderful. It does not test whether or not your hemp goes hot, meaning that if for some reason your hemp turns into cannabis, don't nobody know about it, and you can still be able to obtain the government insurance. So there's a lot of different opportunities, and then of course being on the risk management for the National Cannabis Insurance Agency, we're looking at creating better packages, which will include like product business income insurance now that we're in COVID, right? To cover when you have an operation that is down. And of course, last but not least, very important, product liability. Every retailer, every dispensary should be able to obtain product liability, especially during this COVID time, because you never know what might happen. So all of these are different things that you need to have as a cannabis business owner.
I love it. Two huge questions out of all that, right? Huge amount of
Sure.
information would
Me and
be
Coach.
right. Hold on one second.
Put you in, coach. Go ahead, girlfriend.
Right.
Go ahead. What you
No,
got
give
for
her,
me?
give her.
All right, no,
Yeah.
just real quick. The two questions I
Sure.
had from that quick conversation I pulled away were, you were talking about insuring cannabis businesses, right?
Yes. Yes.
Now, and against crops going hot and stuff like that. Like,
Mhm.
I have a lot of questions about what can be insured and what we can look at as
Mhm.
we are right now. Like, so, like for instance, if Thomas has a crop or a client has a crop that goes hot, is there coverage for something like that? Is there a way that
Yeah.
people can regain money back from their crops?
Yes, yes. And so I'll cover that. So this is a new product. So understand, as this market emerges, there are going to be more and more products. So okay, so there's only probably you gotta. Well, let me break this down. So there's a difference between an insurance company and an insurance agency. The insurance company is the company that underwrites the actual policy and takes the risk, and that's who you pay the premium to. The insurance agency is who sells you the risk package. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So when you look at like State Farm and all these other big boys that have big risk tolerance, they're not in the cannabis space. They're not doing coverage because they have stakeholders. They're federal, whatever it is that their reasoning is. They're not in this space. Does that make sense to you? Okay. So we have probably about 5 or 6 major companies that actually write these underwriters for cannabis businesses. Now, I want you to look at the woman who has the biggest suite of products in Michigan, Illinois, and Massachusetts. Now, not only do we do property and casualty, but we also have we have health insurance that you can do a discount program where for $24 a month you go into our network and you can get up to 50% off of your weed when you buy it in our dispensary. Last but not least, we also have life insurance that has we don't even look at whether or not you are a marijuana smoker. Now, if you get life insurance in any other package or any other coverage, what they do is if you put down that you're a marijuana smoker, they rate you the same as a nicotine smoker. Ours doesn't. So we have everything from seed to sale. We have the largest from transportation, delivery, and everything else. And we have 5 agents that work with us as broker dealers throughout those areas. So when you look at what coverage looks like, all of there's you got to look at it in 3 different ways. There's the coverage that the state requires you to have. There's the coverage that your municipality will require you to have, and then there's the coverage that your business model needs to have. They all 3 of those could coincide and they might be different. So the state is going to always require you to have a certain amount of insurance. In addition to that, there could be some type of financial binding that a municipality may have. And a lot of states are allowing the municipalities to be stricter but not looser. So what that means is that in addition to your $100,000 coverage, your municipality that you in might say you need another $20,000 that we have in an escrow account that you can self-insure or you can buy in a bond. So all of those things can be covered. And then of course for our farmers, yes, we do have new emerging packages that are government subsidized, where just like anything else can be 50% off. So you need to, one, if you're in one of our states, you can always reach out to us, or make sure that you reach out to an agency that specializes in risk packages for cannabis, because it is definitely different.
Right. No, I mean, this is. I mean, I'm blown away to hear all this. Actually, that's why I've been following you for a few weeks now. Is like we talk about insurance on the show a lot. You know what I mean? And like one of the biggest drawbacks from this industry is, I think, is the insurance aspect of it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
But it's changing. It's changing, and we're changing it slowly but surely. I'm a big fan of our, right now, this is open enrollment. So we actually have a medical plan. It's a discount plan. So you pay that $24.95 a month. And mind you, you could be recreational or medical. If you're in our network, you go and you spend your $100 a week or whatever on marijuana, you get it 50% off. That's a big savings, right? And so even if you have a long-term condition, if it's medical, or hell, if you're just doing it so that you don't beat up your wife or your husband, you still getting a big discount, right? So all of these things are evolving. So we're good. We're good with that.
Danica.
What else we got?
Yeah, me and Coach on this one. Oh my gosh, Cimone, I love everything about it. I love everything that you're up to.
Oh,
And
you guys are so sweet.
The point is that, oh my gosh, I appreciate you so much. But
oh, you're so cute.
what's interesting is that when we first started implementing industrial hemp, like on the insurance topic, so we had AgriCorp. AgriCorp is when I first converted my farm, and we started looking at exactly what you're saying. The fact was no insurance programs were available. Yeah. Nothing was like it, and this is why I love everything about what you're saying. And I went to a conference 2 months later, and all of a sudden there was this brand new shiny insurance company. So feel me? So how we do it now in Canada is so we deal with AgriCorp, and we deal with being a cash crop. Now, converting it, nobody really knew what to do with hemp or cannabis, or what it looked like, and how you can kind of what that ROI was, right? Like how to monetize that, how to insure that. So a few months went by. Now we've caught up with it a little bit in Canada. So as long as you plant before June 11th, and I'm talking to all farmers near and wide, June 11th, baby, is when you have to plant in Canada to then effectively get insurance. But then what I found was interesting, what you were speaking about, where we don't know what that is. We don't know what that is. Right now in Canada, we are comparing it to a typical cash crop. So you're right. We don't know what that is. We don't know what that's going to monetize. What we do know is that insurance policies are changing, and people are not, I don't think that they're being made aware of the education, the knowledge like you are providing with these cash crop conversions, right? Because insurance was very streamlined. You bought a farm, you insured it, and you did that. Now we're getting into agriculture, and now we're getting into cannabis, and it's a huge other beast that I think that everybody's taking on in the industry, and we're kind of breaking it down by that. So I love that you are touching base on that, because OG farmers or new school farmers like myself are not necessarily aware of what insurance means. And how that protects their crop and how that works. So I really genuinely, I'm so excited to be a part of this show, because I really love that you're shedding light on that.
Cool. Just to clear that up, in most cases, if it's a new farm, then of course there is a algorithm or whatever that the actuaries come up with, yada, yada, yada. After that, then it is usually based on what the last crop was before, right? Makes sense. So, and needless to say, you can't say, okay, we had $1 million crop. We got $1 million crop this year, and last year it was $50,000. You sound crazy. Ain't nobody gonna cover that. You know what I mean? So it has to be within that window, and that's even if and they will take into account if you have purchased more acreage or whatever. But there is an algorithm and all that other stuff. I'm not an actuary. I couldn't pass those 10
like
tests.
expansion.
No, I love everything about that. But the thing is, and that I think is the most daunting thing for farmers to convert. Exactly. So to your point is, what did you yield last year? What was that looking like? Right now, farmers that have been doing soy or corn or focusing highly on nitrogen, whatever the case may be, they don't know what that yield is now. So it is a little daunting. And to your point, you're coming in saying, what were the specs? What does it look like? How do we move forward? So I add that to my point. It's a beautiful thing of like all these moving parts coming together and growing marijuana.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. We all have to understand it's still an emerging industry, right? So I wouldn't have even started doing, the dope chick and doing everything else if I could just immediately do a turnkey and open up the insurance agency. It took me years to be able to get the insurance agency was established, but I didn't have any clients for quite some time, and so I had to do some things in the in between time. But it made it better, right? It gave a stronger footprint. So as I tell anybody, ancillary or even, and we see this on a macro and on a micro level. Anybody, even the big boys and the small boys, they're all suffering from the same issues. We're all having lag on state policy, state and government policy, right? And that's Canada. Everything. I was just looking at Canopy Growth. Their numbers, and people were saying, okay, is this a better time to buy whatever? But they're having the same issues because guess what? They're still looking at getting into the United States. They have so many things that are pending. I think it's 49 stores in Canada, but they have so many contingency relationships here. And guess what? Let me tell you something. Everybody said, oh, Cimone, you guys hurry up and get licensed in Mississippi. I said, for what? It'll be 2 years before they have a retail place there. By the time it goes into the state doing their thing, then the municipalities deciding if they're doing, then whatever their application process is, and then whatever the application on whether or not it's medical or recreational, then the fight and the lawsuits that the community gonna have with the municipality, and the municipality gonna sue the state, and the state gonna call whatever. Before they do all of that, I have yet to see any state be able to come in inception and have a market within less than 24 months.
Oh my God!
I got a bridge in Brooklyn you can buy.
Me and Tim talk about this all the time. We talk about this on this show. It's like what the inception, like how long it takes to get from everyone's like, oh, it's legal, we just pass on. Because in Vermont, I'm sure everybody's seen, we talk about a lot. Vermont, we just went to a recreational format. So now we're legal, right? So now the structures, everybody's like, now everyone's like yesterday asking me like, hey, where can I go buy weed now? Like where I'm like, guys, like we still have to build, like think about the things that have to be made and put in place before a lot of people can
the infrastructure and everything else
go forth with any sort of business in Vermont, right? Tim talks. Oh, did we freeze here?
Go ahead.
And we look at that and we go away from getting anything really. I think my internet's getting wonky. We're looking at like 2 years away from getting anything really established in here in Vermont. Like you said, it's literally everywhere we look across the country. It's literally about 2 years, right?
It's about 2 years. I mean, people right now, we had 5 states that just passed, and everybody called me and they said, "Oh, I get agents. Oh, we would love to get started." I said, "Yeah, I'll call you in 2022. You ain't gonna have no job. You ain't gonna have a business. You know what I mean? Nobody to target because it takes that long to even establish." Now, the the states that we really concentrate on are the ones that have been, in inception for a while, and they've got sustainable businesses, and the market isn't saturated. But yeah, so that's when we talk about the stocks or whatever, the companies that we look at, that's on a macro level, right? So we can look at we can have the same argument with Aurora Cannabis, with everybody. It's still the same thing. And then, of course, we're steady seeing that on a micro level, where we look at our dispensaries, our grows, and all that other stuff. It's consistent. It's consistent with everyone, right? And so everybody wants to run to Michigan right now, and I will say I do like what we're doing in Michigan, right? But this is since 2017, and we've had medical since 2008. So the medical is 12 years old, and the recreational is 17, is 3 years old. And the party still ain't really started. So
right.
Go.
I mean, Tom, I was gonna say, Tom, this sounds kind of a lot like Vermont, right? I mean, in essence, we've been in a medical state for quite a long time, and now to get where we were at, it's just been a long time, right? Tom, I mean, for you from an American side, a grower side, I mean, obviously we're talking a lot about the business aspect. I mean, if you as a grower and working with the growers firsthand, right? What are the basic needs that they're looking for insurance? And you as a grower, have you found anything really out there like this? I mean, to me, it's all kind of new.
So for the most part, on the cannabis front for Vermont, there's very, very little, if anything, available. There's definitely some options as far as hemp is concerned. But for the most part, I see most of the guys that I'm talking to, most of the guys that are looking to set up small cultivation facilities and stuff for legalization, to actually be looking at a couple of main things. Number one is crop insurance. They want to ensure that, if something happens to their crop, they want to get compensated for it. They don't want to be able to, have a plant that veggies for 2 months and flowers for 2 months, and then you have to dry for 2 weeks and cure for another 2 weeks. At that point, you've wasted 6 to 9 months growing this plant. You need to be able to obtain something from it. So the other big thing is property insurance. So that's going to be all their lighting and electrical, the building itself, as far as fire issues are concerned. And then the only other thing that I really see a lot of people looking into is burglary insurance, in particular theft, because obviously huge issues with theft. Obviously, it's one of the biggest industries in the world when it comes to.
I'm sorry, you guys are from the U.S. You not just buy a gun?
Well, okay, so I just wanted to, before she even goes into that, let's clear up. So a couple things I want to clear up on how it actually goes. So your general liability is going to be for, like, your inventory if you're doing indoor. That crop insurance is going to be if you are outside, right? So if you're not outside, it's not crop insurance. It's going to be under that general liability or whatever happens, and some other things. In addition to that, I want to be clear. So theft insurance, bye guys. So if the theft insurance is going to be for like employee theft, right? But under that general liability and that property, if you have damages, somebody comes in, then that's what's going to be covered for that, right? And then also, I don't know, let me ask you this question. In Vermont, right? So when we look at it, Vermont, do you guys have like a craft program, like a smaller license for individuals, like 100 plants or less? Do you have a license for that?
1,000 square foot. 1,000 square foot.
Okay, it's the okay. So right. So Illinois does it by the square foot. Okay, so Vermont too. Wasn't familiar with them. So with that being said, most of the state now, if you have the 1,000 square foot, do you own your own process from seed to sale? Because a lot of them, you grow it, you process it, you manufacture it, and you retail it. Is that how it goes?
No, well, there'd be separate licenses. You can be vertically integrated, but it's not mandatory.
Okay.
Our medical program is mandatory vertical integration.
Okay, makes sense. So what I would say to you guys is make sure that you find out what the state requirements are for that and be able to like really kind of hone in and keep that going. But yeah, find out what the state requirements are for each of those licenses and what the state qualification is for if you are vertically integrated. And most of the time they don't give you a break.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the biggest question. Like Tom said, here in the East Coast, we don't see a lot of these insurance companies. We go to events, we talk to them, and like they seem like they're very limited in what their coverages and options are, right? And most of them don't really have like these coverages. And for us, in a few of these past years, flood insurance is something I probably throw on there, whether it's that would cover crop or anything like that, but whether it's building, flood damage like that, which I know is another hard thing for people to get in certain areas. So this is amazing. Like, how do people go about finding this out? Because I mean, I know you said you have about 3 states that you represent, right?
Yeah.
Like Tom was saying, like in Vermont, it's something that it's hard for us to find, right? There's probably in a company or two. What's the risk assessment that these insurance companies are taking at this moment? Why is not every insurance company doing this right now?
Well, okay. Well, you got to remember. So when you do insurance and you do a underwriting, we look at what we call the rate of larger numbers, right? And so those larger numbers, the more instances that we have, the more that we can kind of obtain and figure out what's the chances of a hazard or a loss to happen. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is that, again, as I said before, it's not federally legal, and a lot of these insurance companies have stockholders and everything else for them to be able to participate in. So you just got to understand that it's a money's game. And so in that instance, that there are companies like myself who are willing to take the risk, and the smaller ones we're willing to grow. And then there's other ones that are, I mean, you got to think about it. State Farm has been around for 100 or some years. You think they care about you and your little weed business? No. Everybody doesn't want to get high. And we just need to get that out of our mind. Now, at the end of the day, they will come in, and some of them won't. That's not going to be for everyone and every entity, but there will be some that will be able to take on the risk assessment, and they'll be able to move forward with it. Right?
Now, when you talk about the companies that you work for, though,
Okay, cool.
will they work in every state? Like, will they cover Vermont companies and stuff like that, or no?
So you can actually Google and be able to find something in every state. So I would Google cannabis insurance, and you could be able to find somebody in every state that will be able to help you. And we can get licensed in Vermont, and if you guys got some good businesses, we can see about that soon.
Right?
And again, what we do is we create risk packages.
Mm.
Right? So you want to find somebody who is a professional. I tell everybody, and I tell my agents, we are professionals in the cannabis and craft beer place industry that offer insurance. We're not insurance salesmen. Our job is to know your business, right? So we understand the count and all that other stuff. We understand the equipment and everything that you're doing, So we go in to create packages that will be able to meet your protection needs of your business model.
That's awesome. And you also work in the cannabis industry. I mean, the beer industry, right? The craft beer industry. So you work in that realm
Yeah,
as
I
well,
mean,
right?
but hemp and hops is the same thing. It's the same thing. Listen, a dispensary ain't nothing but a distillery with the different products. It's the same. It is the same model. It's the same. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing in most cases.
Mm.
So when we got a chance to do them both, yes, I have a very fun life. I hang out with bootleggers and drug dealers all day. So it's a good time. It's a good time.
Right? No, I can only imagine. I
Yeah.
mean, the insurance thing
Oh, I
goes.
have a party. If y'all follow me, y'all know I have a good time every day.
Yes, you do. It's you.
I
Now,
have a good time.
what's unique about what you do every day, though, is it's not only just this, right? You have a couple other things that you're constantly doing that you
Yes.
promoting all the time, right?
Yeah. So, okay. So when I got into the industry, I definitely saw that there were a lack of individuals that looked like me, brown and black people. And so, with that being said, I knew that there was a lot of opportunity for racial and social equity. And so, when I moved back to my community, which is a small community, but predominantly African American, I saw that there was this opportunity that they had opted in to be able to do marijuana, but these businesses were not creating pathways for people of color. And this was a consistent conversation all over the United States, all over the state. And so for marijuana, and this is one of the largest trade groups in the United States for minorities and marijuana. Very, very inclusive, but definitely creating pathways on education and awareness and criminal reform and a host of other things. So, we fed men in the exit program. We do holiday gifts. We donate to expungement programs and all other type of stuff. So I'm very, very proud of the community that I'm a part of. But in addition to that, Roz McCarty, who is the CEO, is a big advocate on education and getting the education on how to enter the green rush to people of color and people all over, right? In just depressed zones. So that's been a big, big thing for us to do. So I want to say I love you to my M for M family. I love you guys so much. Eric and Vanessa and Leo and everybody else. Hey. I want to say hi to them. And then in addition to that, I get a chance to sit on quite a few boards, but one of the ones that I'm very proud of is I am the chairwoman for the Michigan Marijuana Regulatory Agency, which is our governing agency. They have put together a social equity program group, and so I'm the chairwoman under business and development. And so my job is to figure out how people of color can get access to money and get into the green rush. And one of my initiatives right now, I'm gonna give y'all a little bit because we're dripping it. But one of my initiatives is that I am creating a local stock exchange for minorities and marijuana. This is the biggest thing I've ever done. Y'all gonna look, little girls gonna read about me one day. So we're doing a lot of good things. We're doing a lot of good things and creating a lot of different pathways. So I'm excited.
Well, the big thing is the minorities things, right? Like we talked about earlier. We had Leo on the show, and he was, I mean, just a phenomenal guy. And we talked about the whole New Jersey thing quite intimately. And now, again, like you said earlier, one of the five states that went legalized whereas New Jersey. And
New Jersey was one of the first ones. As soon as I saw it, I had to give him a text and tell him, "Hey, Big Leo." I know he was sticking his chest out. So that's one of my good friends. Love him. That's one of my brothers, right? So very, very proud of what's going on over there.
We love that. We love that. Now, as far as so the social equity level, right? We're seeing a lot of work being done on those fields. You're working. You say like you work with Mass. There's a couple of questions I wanted to ask you based on
Sure.
it was like the social equity. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like this last year everybody's kind of getting woke to it, right? Like there's a lot of states doing a lot of work for it. How and you're working with the associations that you're working with, right? And it is about minorities and social equity, and we love that. We support that, right? How do you feel about where we stand right now within as a country, right? Or within a slightly state by state basis? Are we making strides? Is it something? I mean, I know there's a lot of work still to do, but how do you feel about it right now? Because you like you said, you're a great representative of these programs.
Well, I think that as a whole, we are making. I think that I think that the work is being done, right? And so we have yet to see if there's proof in the pudding, right? And I think there's a lot of awareness of the disconnect. That's the first thing. The second thing is that Dr. McCarthy, who is the cannabis banker, he says it as eloquent as I could possibly say, is that there is profit in diversity. And so when we look at this cannabis industry and we look at the green rush, we don't know that our most growing consumers are baby boomers, right? Guess what though? They're dying. Okay, so you're selling old in a bottle if you're a retail place. And so we have to understand that consumer dollars are definitely an important part, and diversifying those dollars and getting Black and brown money. And the most influential spenders in America are Black women. So talking to those individuals. In addition to that, social equity does not just mean entrepreneurship. Creating a fair market platform for wages, right? So everybody should be able to receive platforms where the states create licenses that reflect their demographics of their state, right? So all of those things are going to be important. We have to be able to push awareness. We have to be able to continue to fight for the two major hurdles that are standing in between Black and brown people, which are both financial and criminal. We've gotten rid of a lot of the criminal. Now let's look at those financial opportunities. What does that look like? Creating a equity and equality amongst the entry points. We know that this is not a poor man's industry, that so many of us have to work together, but creating pathways so that individuals, people of color can pool their assets together, be able to participate in the market in their neighborhoods and throughout the states that they reside in.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's amazing. I mean, it's amazing work and it's hard work. I mean,
it's a lot of work, but it takes a lot to do, and that happens on the public policy, that happens in the local municipality, but it also happens with the entrepreneurs and the entities and the business entities in the community. So we all have to want it, right? And so it's not just one thing. The things that I'm actually working on, we're working on things that are going into a bill. That will be in a bill. So this is not like, okay, I just decided this on Tuesday. No, we have to get it. And so when it is a bill and when it becomes an act, at that point, that is a law.
Yeah.
Right? So people have to abide for it. And so the other thing is that we have to understand how public policy works.
Mm-hmm.
How to get shit done.
It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It is not a sprint.
It is. There we go. It is a marathon. It is not a sprint.
I'll see what the finish line. I'll wait for it.
Yeah, it is a marathon. It's definitely a marathon.
No, it definitely is. I mean, and you're involved in so much. It's like, especially on the social equity, it's a marathon. Unfortunately, it's a priority for most, but it seems to be the last.
Joe.
Wait. Yeah, Joe, okay. You just put out
issues that we see. Not being able to attain it.
There we go. You just froze up. We're back. Go ahead.
Oh, am I back? Oh, okay. I see it freezing on my end. Mm-hmm. Right. I get the wonky internet. It happens every few shows, I guess. It seems to never end. The internet, the business, as far as the farmers, like that's what we love to hear, because obviously we work with farmers. We have farmers on the show, and I think I think it's interesting because it's really regional, right? Because you're talking about Michigan and the areas that you guys have awesome packages for, right? Then you guys talking about the Canadian aspect of it and what she sees and how it works in Canada. And like Thomas is going, hey, here in New England, we don't have many options. Like there's a few out there. But I think, to my beliefs, a lot of the coverages are limited. I don't know if that's changed in the last year or so since I've looked into it personally. Thomas would be a great, and Tim would be a great, conversation about that. Cause what are, again, like we said before, for Tim, what do you offer to people here in Vermont for insurance options? You know what I mean? For the companies that you deal with, what are their options and the limitations on that?
Standard business, liability, premise liability, and at this point, a little bit of product liability for our CBD clients, and that's topicals only. We've got 2 agencies that we have in our network of cannabis professionals, and that's about it. That's really all that is being offered here at this point. Obviously, adult use just passed a few weeks ago, so we're not there yet. Hemp crop insurance, the insurance companies here just haven't run the numbers, so they're not able to give any reasonable rates.
They can't. I mean, no. So just to correct you, there are. I mean, I'm a part of an agency that's licensed all over. So there. You're just not talking to the right people. I can get you guys somebody. Right? Yeah. So I'm sure that. Yeah. I mean, my actual agency, one of the agents. Well, like I said, we have the biggest suite of products, but we have a company that's in all 50 states, and so you guys just don't know the right people. So we'll get you over to the right people. How about that? I can do that for you. I can do that for you, Sydney. We'll get you over to the right people.
Why are you so good to us?
I'm sorry. Because I'm just a sweetheart.
Oh, you're so
Well, I
good.
mean, Thomas, isn't that one of the things that we would talk to most people about, just being shy to get in the industry? Like you said, like, how do you cover those insurances? We see a lot at least in our area here in New England, a lot to do with theft, right? It's like you said, Danica, it's like, get a gun. It's not really that easy. We
Yeah.
just can't shoot people dead on our properties.
I
And
am not gun happy. Let it be known. I do not. What I'm
it's
saying.
okay. I mean, I understand there's a lot of people that live by those thoughts and means, but like literally at the end of the day, they still have the robberies. We've seen people get beat up, and like we saw a major, abuse to one of our friends here in the industry out west.
Mm.
Oh my
God
gosh.
rest him in his recovery.
Oh my
But like
goodness.
this year has been, I think, one of the. I mean, I don't know if it's because of media, but like it seems to be one of the more aggressive years we've seen in thefts, right, Tom?
Absolutely.
We've seen an uptick here too.
When it comes down to it, I see the ability to get insurance for these type of things to be, paramount and the best option in this situation, because in reality, just having a gun on site puts you in felony territory when it comes to growing cannabis. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but I'm pretty sure that just having a gun on site, even if you're only growing a couple of plants, if the federal government wanted to come down on you for it, they could. Are they really going to come down and arrest, 10,000 Vermonters that each have a rifle and a rifle and a handgun in their home and are growing a couple of plants? No, they're not, but they could if they wanted to. So, especially if it comes down to actually using the weapon, I wouldn't put it past the federal government to step in that front and start throwing their weight around.
Well, we've seen cases where that has been an issue, though, right, Tim? I mean, even here in Vermont, just like if it wasn't a gun on the premises, there would probably be no big issue, right? Like the gun's kind of really taking.
What a gun does is make a prosecutor more concerned. It also insinuates not personal use.
We don't have the same in Canada, just so everybody knows. And to Simone's point, that comes down to the insurance. Did you insure your gun?
No, it's not like that in America because of our scheduling
system.
Yeah, our scheduling, because it's class one. It's scheduled as a class one drug, right? Within that schedule, in all drugs, you're not allowed to have a firearm technically legally, and that's with any of the other anything that falls under that scheduling, right? So a lot of people focus on the cannabis issue, but really it's an issue for all those drugs. That's why descheduling this is such a priority for most of us advocates, activists, because that's where it starts. Right now, you're allowed to have guns. So now that store owner who has a gun in his safe or under his wherever, because he owns a store or he owns a glass shop and he gets robbed, or they come in and he's got some weed, he's selling ace over the counter, which we almost an exact situation here in Vermont, right?
Okay, so fair. I mean, that's fair, and I completely respect that. But back to Thomas's point, so where's the line? Where do you guys draw the line? And I'm genuinely curious about this.
As far as being able to own a weapon and grow cannabis, I mean, on a federal level, I mean, because cannabis is a Schedule I drug, if you're growing cannabis, you're already doing something illegal to begin with, and then just having a gun to begin with makes it a prosecutable offense. If I walk into
it's an enhanced offense.
Right, exactly, an enhanced offense. So if I walk into the store, yeah, it definitely an enhanced offense. If I walk into the store and say, I want to buy a rifle today, they will sit me down in front of a computer and they'll say, okay, answer these 15, 20 questions, whatever it is.
Are you a good person? Do you want to kill that woman beside you?
Right, exactly. Have you ever been convicted of, or, do you have a schizophrenia, etc.? And one of the questions is, do you or have you ever consumed marijuana? And if you check yes, you are not allowed to purchase that gun. They will not sell it to you.
Hold on, though. Sorry to interrupt you, but you're allowed to purchase the gun if you've done something other, like, let's say you took Valium for 20 years. You're still allowed to purchase a gun, but if you checked off the marijuana box, you're not allowed?
Within reason, yeah. I mean, as long as there's no offense that would otherwise have made it impossible for you to purchase one, yeah, absolutely. But the fact that you'd ever used marijuana even once in your life deems you unfit to purchase a weapon in the federal government's eyes in the United States. So as a medical patient, if I go in and I check, no, I do not consume marijuana, and they sell me a rifle, but then somehow the government ends up with access to the medical patient list, sees that I'm on both lists. Next thing you know, I could have people showing up at my door asking to see if I have any cannabis and or weapons on my property.
And like Thomas mentioned a list real quick, I want to just mention that there's a lot of states that still have lists available for enforcement agencies, the federal government. Some states don't, but a lot, right? Is that correct?
Every state does. If law enforcement has a warrant, they're going to give them up the list in a heartbeat. There's no question about it. There's no protection there. You don't have any Americans with Disability Act protection. And it's a federal offense to be the user of a Schedule I controlled substance in possession of a firearm. It's a federal felony to be having a firearm in the furtherance of a felony. Cultivating marijuana under the federal gun law is a felony. Using marijuana under the law makes you the user of a controlled substance, which now possession of a firearm is a felony. And this is just to get started. Let's get to Section 8. I mean, we have had so many talks about, all of the ways that the, classification as a Schedule I controlled substance in the Controlled Substances Act affects all of the ancillary issues surrounding cannabis, specifically adult use and even medical use. Thankfully, we have not seen prosecutions like that, but that's not, it's not, the U.S. Attorney's Office is not going to go after it for that. If they want you for something else, they can tack that on as leverage, because that's what the federal government does. You're not going to beat a federal charge. If you're charged federally, you're done. It's all about negotiation. It's all about who has more leverage. Do you have something they want? Do you have assets to forfeit, information? And that just gives them more leverage against you. Okay, well, we've got you on the cultivation of cannabis. Now, if you really want to fight us on this, we can go ahead and tack on the firearm, and now you can look at it an additional 10 years. Your sentencing guidelines just went from a 32 to a 48.
That's a really incredible point. And like I said, in Canada, it works a little bit differently. And I know that Cimone touched on this from an insurance perspective, but I think that that's very important for people to know that the insurance and the legalities of all of that. And it applies in Canada, where if we have guns, we still have to be aware of the fact that we're growing. But Cimone, what does that actually look like for an insurance policy? Is that a separate gun involved? Like, how does that work?
Oh, did you catch that, Cimone? That's a great question. It was she was talking about how that works in America. I mean, one quick point, which sucks for us because like a lot of our farmers and they're farmers, they have guns. I mean, a lot of these guys are registered firearms. I mean, in most of these northern states, hunting is a big thing. So everybody has licenses to own their weapons, right? They all are registered and they're legal. And still at that note, it's still a federal offense for cannabis. Does that become an insurance issue for you, Cimone, when people own guns? How do you insure with something of that nature?
Well, in most cases, in most states that we've seen, that law is kind of consistent. As of right now, if you have like a medical card or whatever, then you can't hold a gun card, and that's been consistent in a lot of the states that I've saw. I have not. We don't. That's not necessarily a peril or a risk that the insurance is really worried about, because that's more of a personal thing. So people own guns, not business entities, right? So that wouldn't have anything to do with us, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting point, especially from like that angle. I mean, it for us as a consumer, that might not be the best answer for us, but like I mean, that's a great explanation of it. And maybe
no, I mean, but that's a real answer. You have to understand that. So we insure companies. Companies don't own guns. People do.
Right.
So that has absolutely nothing to do with your insurance.
Does that typically become a personal charge in those instances, Timothy? Or is that something that usually falls under a business if they're caught with a gun on the premise?
It depends on the facts of the case. Vicarious liability could import right to the company. I mean, if it's an employee acting in the scope of employment, that could potentially come back onto the company as well. But it would be really factually, it would be a real fact-dependent situation. You'd have to look at all the details, why, how, what happened. But yes, no, Simone's absolutely right. Any criminal charges, especially, are going to be on the person. I mean, an entity can be technically indicted, but you can't put a business in jail. So it would be the owners of the business if it was something that they had done. Again, just Netflix just, was indicted in Texas for a movie, Cuties, that they put on, claiming it was child pornography. I mean, absolutely ridiculous. Never got any traction, but it technically could happen, I guess. Very unusual, though. Very, I mean, and I doubt you'd ever see an actual it moved past the initial stage.
Right. I mean, it's interesting to talk about this because I think, again, like when we talk to Tom, I think he can attest to like a lot of the people he works with, a lot of the guys literally in the farms, in the fields. These are their concerns because, again, like you said, weapons is a very common thing, especially where we live down south. I mean, pretty much everywhere, really. I mean, a lot of people have weapons. A lot of people are responsible enough to own them and do the right thing and to register them and do everything that their states require them to do. A lot of people own them for multiple reasons. A lot of people own them for protection. And again, if I were to own a 100-acre hemp farm or any sort of farm, cannabis related or whatever, I would probably want a rifle on my farm as well. Not only
A
for
lot of, and sorry to interrupt you, but a lot
right.
of people have told that to me, that I should own a gun and I should be ready to wield a gun. I am personally anti-hunting. It's not something that I understand where everybody's coming from, but and in Canada too, like Joe, to your point, it is something that's important to be aware of. And like I tell you, there's multiple gunshots going off all day because we have a bounty in Ontario for $100 per coyote. People are getting fired up about it, and pun intended, but not meant to be funny. It definitely comes down to your comfort. They tell me you're a single female in 100 acres. You should learn to use a gun. You should learn to shoot people. That's not really what I'm up to. But let it be known that my uncle does know how to shoot everybody. So.
Stay away from the farm. But
I respect what you're saying for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it become an issue in the cannabis realm, especially because, again, we've just tried to explain that we try to explain the outline. You know what I mean? Like, I guess, Thomas can say firsthand from like the people he experiences with. It's a risky take. I think a lot of people still do it because here in Vermont, we think it's a right that we have, right? So it creates a weird thing, especially with getting a medical license, right, Tom? I mean, with a medical license, that's a big problem we see, right?
Absolutely. So when I became a medical patient, I actually one of the first things my doctor discussed with me was how many rifles I own. And, typical, Vermont families, 10, 12, 50. There's obviously some, but get rid of them. Well, why? Well, because you now are on a list that says that you consume a Schedule I substance. So if the federal government did want to do anything about it, they could. As Tim mentioned, they're not going to come after you for just that. They're going to tack it on to other additional offenses. But the first thing I did was get rid of all of my rifles, and I learned how to shoot a bow better. And a bow thankfully doesn't fit the same bill when you go to the store and want to buy one. They don't ask you the same questions. In fact, my kid could walk in and walk out the store with a bow in most cases with just a phone call to me. Oh, are you okay with the kid taking this home? Oh, sure, no problem. And he's out the door.
Right.
Doesn't work that way with gun.
Right. Walmart's easy access to both bows, guns, all this stuff. But like the thing the thing that it's like the business thing. Like, we talk about the California or out west in Colorado where people are like, there's these companies that just have all this cash. It's tax season. They don't have banking. They don't have digital ways to move cash around. So they move large volumes of cash, right? Like, would you not want to protect yourself? It's like, again, a lot of it's meant for protection. A lot of these guys are hunters, avid hunters. You know what I mean? It's things they do in their spare time. They protect their property. It's not like they're trying to shoot anybody. They'll fire warning shots or keep like you said, the coyotes away. If there's a bounty for coyotes on your property, why would you not be target practicing all day long if that's what you're into, right? But it creates a really great legality question all over the board, right? Especially when it comes to insurance, when it comes to your state laws, when it comes to your amendment rights, right? Like, you have the right to bear arms in this country, right? So, and when they try to take them away, like Thomas said, because you go get a medical card, that's an interesting perspective. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people don't go that route because of that. Pretty much on one main reason, and then another main reason is insurance. Now, to flip that back to you, I want to talk about insurance when we get back and what is acceptable for patients, because we saw in New Jersey that they're kind of forcing, or not forcing, but they're mandating the insurance companies to cover New Jersey cannabis patients. Am I right? But let's get back to that when I get back. But Thomas, let's do your episode right now. So we get the Growers Guide with Thomas. He did another great episode this week. Let's do a little quick forecast to that. We'll take a quick segment. We'll come back can talk about patience for a minute. Then we'll bring Timothy on. We'll talk about some fun. All right, Tom. I'm sorry. I'm high. I'm starting to go.
we lose you there, Joe. All right. So this week we are doing chapstick. So this is just a simple, easy cannabis infused chapstick. It's even edible. If you really wanted to eat it, you could, twist it right up and just chow down on it and have yourself a good afternoon. I didn't edit this one myself, so it's a little bit different as far as my style is concerned, but you still get the point across, and it's fairly easy and simple to follow, and you get most of this stuff right at your local health food store, if not at your local big box store.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I heard me and Camille get free chapstick.
Have some around here.
Let's get some chapstick. Now let's talk about chapstick for a quick second before we hop in the segment. And I'm sure you probably covered it. Is there now? What's the medical benefits for chapstick? I mean, we talk about all the time. We're coming to the winter season, ski season. We're going to see hopefully people on the slopes if they ever end this lockdown craziness that we're involved with. And chapstick's a huge seller in the wintertime, right?
Chapstick has numerous benefits aside from just fixing your chapped lips. So your lips have the ability to absorb the CBD and or the THC into your body. So it can help with anxiety issues. It can help with pain management. It can help with chapped lips. So once you have some on, when it's on your lips, if you're just licking your lips here or there throughout the day, you're going to be medicating yourself almost as if you're eating an edible. That's why I said you could actually take this chapstick and actually take a chunk off and eat it and have yourself a good afternoon if you really wanted to. But just licking your lips throughout the day and applying every couple of hours helps a lot of medical patients be able to maintain at least a mild amount of pain management, as well as just some anxiety release and general stress relief. I actually recommend it to a lot of patients I work with that have cancer, that specifically are just, for lack of better words, really depressed or down in the dumps. And it helps them be a little bit on the happier side, not really high or anything in that respect, but a little bit more euphoric, as well as helping numb the pain just a little bit.
No, it's amazing to think about where we are at with making chapstick, right? It's amazing. Now, my biggest question is, like, everybody asks this question, and it's like, do you feel it on your lips? Do your lips feel high? Like, I know it's a silly question, but like, what should people expect from taking it? Does it just feel like chapstick and you just get the medication, or is it like your face? No.
It entirely depends on the concentration. So if you're using a mild dose of, say, just a little bit of CBD or possibly even a little THC in it, you're not going to notice much in the effects of tingling lips or anything along those lines. In my case, I usually make some pretty heavily dosed chapstick. So in that respect, I can definitely feel a little bit of a tingle, if not just from the cannabis and the infusion, then also from some of the essential oils that I use. And then from there, I don't really get much of a euphoric high or anything from just having it on my lips. But again, licking my lips throughout the day over the course of a couple of hours and reapplying after a couple of hours works almost like a low dose edible throughout the day. So for people that are, say, that have bad anxiety issues and are medical patients and might be flying on a plane, it's the perfect option, because if you use the right essential oils, it doesn't smell bad at all. And you're able to medicate yourself while you're on the plane or while you're traveling from location to location discreetly without getting into too much trouble.
That's awesome. And I'm sure it's pretty readily accessible in most stores, right? Most of these head shops. I mean, I've seen it in most places.
What about Canada? That was going to be, I love, Joe, that you touched on that. That was going to be my next question. What are you up to with wholesale pricing with Canada and all that good stuff? We remember you, we the North.
Right. Well, Canada deserves it as much as us up here, right?
Yeah.
No, but do you have Canadian wholesale pricing? Genuine question. And is that something that
As of right now, I don't have much as far as wholesale pricing is concerned. And that's only because everything that I do is small batch. So I do make orders, but all of the orders that I make out are small batch orders. So if someone requests a batch of CBD gummies, they're made to spec, tested, and then it ends up costing them a bit more because it costs me more to test each individual batch, but they end up having a fresher product and a product that's designed to their specifications the way that they want it. So if they tried it and they say, oh, 25 milligrams CBD was too much for me, it makes me sleepy. Okay, well, next time we'll try 15. And, oh, I didn't like the cherry or the lime versions, so next time can we try blue raspberry and grape? And just mix it up in any which way they want in that respect. Again, it's a little bit more on the expensive side because it's all small batch, but it does.
Jenny, I love everything about that, especially coming from a small artisan, all that good stuff down. I love that you literally look at your client, you look at what their scale is, you look at what they're up to, and you scale it to that. I think that's incredible.
I think Thomas is dealing a lot more with the medical aspect of it, which is great. That's one of the great things about craft cannabis and what craft cannabis can be about in our industry is that actually you can work with a patient. You know, hopefully we can see like this kind of craftness reach a medical level where when you as a patient can like, you know, what Thomas does because dealing directly with patients, he can actually, you know, like he said, find out what it works for them. You know what I mean? It's like any doctor, right? Really, in essence, because
a doctor, a good doctor.
One of the things I'm most excited about the 2022 legalization for Vermont is specifically the ability to cultivate, not necessarily to cultivate in general on a recreational basis, but because then I'll legally be able to cultivate on a much larger scale on a medical basis in that respect. I'm going to be directing all of my sales towards benefiting medical patients and veterans. I'm going to be aiming towards trying to assist them with the product if at all possible. And then anything that's available, that's left over, any available trim, et cetera, will be donated specifically for those purposes. So in reality, I'm happy to be able to get on the front lines and be able to grow, but I'm most excited about being able to be able to help more people.
There's a lot of great partners and people that associate and support the show, like Cannabiganics. Eric over there with Canna Cares is doing wonderful things. You guys are always doing fun stuff together, which is a big shout out to Eric. Thank you for all the support and help that you provided for Thomas and everybody else in the state. Thomas is his approach is what a lot of people's approach are in the craft cannabis industry, I believe. You know what I mean? It's more patient advocacy. It's more patient derived because we see what the plant can really do when it's used appropriately. And when it's not used appropriately, you know, the saddest part of the industry, we talk about it all the time. It's like when somebody buys a bottle of something and they expect to get something out of it and it doesn't work, right? So no matter whether it's cannabis or anything we buy, right, whether it's a car, a juicer, whatever, if you go turn it on, it doesn't work. What's the first thing we do with it? We give up on it, right? We throw it away. And then we say this didn't work and we go back. Now, whether you're an opioid patient or, you know, like Thomas was saying, medical patients, I mean, these are the two patients I think it affects the most because when they go to try something, and if it's garbage, if it's not a high quality product, you know, we talk about dispensary, even quality sometimes isn't the best. So you have to be careful, right? When that quality is low and the product doesn't work, or you buy it off Amazon and it says CBD or THC on it, you get it and it really has nothing in it, you give up on it, right? Not a lot of people, and it's an expensive, and let's be real, it's an expensive gamble if you think about it, right? So, you know, we're always talking the craft industry. The commercial industry is always saying, you know, trust the commercial industry because, you know, when we say know your grower, right? Because they know their product, you can smoke it, they can almost introduce you to the plant if they want to. But like when you're a medical patient, that's where I think our medical industry is lacking, because even from a prescription level, how many of us have ever been to our doctor and the doctor prescribed us something just kind of off his head randomly that didn't work? And then if it didn't work,
I think I've mentioned this before, Joe. I walked into the dispensary for the first time, and the quote unquote pharmacist told me that I didn't need any CBD in the medicines that I would choose because I use THC on a regular basis. The only reason I would have needed to incorporate any CBD at all would have been to help with a paranoia that otherwise would have been associated with the THC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I some of these people are absolutely ridiculous. How are you making $150,000 a year and providing that bogus information to people?
Mm-hmm. No, I feel you there. But that's a part of our industry right now, and a lot of it is like, you know, we're talking about it's a new industry. There's the medical mindset of it, with our endocannabinoid systems and trying to get the medical system
It's not. I'm
on
sorry, but
board.
I got to jump in on this one. Yes,
You know, and like,
no. Well, I
right.
appreciate you so much. Two things. To Thomas's point, that's exactly it. And like and the only reason I jump in, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, is that we have the same issue going on in Canada, but a little bit different. Where they will literally look at you. You have 15 minutes on a computer with somebody who's quote unquote allowed to give, your option, and then it's no longer relevant, and they will give you whatever is relevant in their mind to that. So I find it really interesting, and actually Cimone just jumped off the call, but I love that there was this synergy between the insurance and Thomas, to your point about what is actually medically included to what is actually being farmed, and what is actually like where are the specs, where are the actual I guess for lack of a better term, like why were you being allowed to have that? Why were you being prescribed that from a doctor who you don't even know is necessarily a doctor?
Well, fortunately, I mean, because we go to doctors. Simone's back, right? Well, that brings up an interesting all this we're talking about, right? But like the biggest lack we have is insurance, right?
Well,
like
and
our
that's
patients
exactly
don't
my
have the
point, is that
insurance.
I'm saying that it was
Thomas
a
is
beautiful synergy between Cimone being like, how does that work? Is that something that's genuinely acknowledged from somebody who needs their medicine, who's being prescribed now from, and I know that I'm Canadian, so I'm talking not state, but provincial. How does that work from a federal to state level if you're getting prescribed that and all of this good stuff, like Thomas was saying? So I think that it's a really cool show because insurance, how do we pay for it? Thomas, medical, all that good stuff. How do you get that to fruition?
Yep. Well, that's it. I think a lot of it's like, well, Cimone touched on it a little bit earlier, and this is where I want to go with after Thomas's segment, was what New Jersey just did, because I think it's the first of its kind of approach to insurance, where the state's kind of forcing people to cover patients, right? Like the biggest problem we have right now is Thomas and his patients to be able to go to a dispensary and get their cannabis here in America covered with insurance, right? So like that cannabis patient.
So can I tell you why that's not going to go through?
And they have to pay.
Yes.
Can I tell you why that's not going to go through?
You think that?
Yes, please.
I'm going to tell you right now why there's no. Okay, so first of all, for insurance to cover it, it would have to be not only FDA approved, but it would have to be proven that it actually cured something. Okay, there's absolutely nothing now. What we do say is that it can aid in conditions. In addition to that, it has to be pulled off of the Schedule D. There's a whole that it has to become a real product and actually have footprints that it cures something. It doesn't have any of that. So insurance companies are not going to cover that. What we offer is considered a discount plan, right? So this is a discount plan, and that's all that can be done right now with different supplemental, but it's a discount plan. So as far as making it mandatory, how do you make something mandatory when it doesn't prove that it can work and do anything? Right. You sound crazy. No, that's never going to happen.
So you think
I'm going to make it mandatory for you to go outside, but I don't have any proof that going outside does anything.
Right.
Come on, some of this stuff we can figure out.
Policy change it if we could prove that.
Well, what happens is, there would have to be more medical research done. You got to understand that part of the reason why it's still on the Schedule D is simply because a lot of doctors don't want to take on the pain points for us to be able to figure out whether or not it cures these conditions. And understand, it takes 3 to 5 years to be able to prove that, because you have to not only prove that it works, but also list the side effects. Okay, so I'm gonna help y'all. Y'all know that when you have a drug, it says, I feel so much better now that I've done whatever, but could cause diarrhea, suicide, and all that. That takes time to be able to do work groups and all the other stuff. So it doesn't just happen overnight, right? We all think it happens overnight. Oh yeah, we're gonna have our medical coverage. What are they covering? They're not covering anything. That's a made up story.
So you don't think that's gonna? So I mean, I saw that in New Jersey that was something they were trying to propose, but I see your angle from the insurance side. I mean, from all of us, I'm sure everyone on this panel has 50 questions to ask about, what that means, right? But like ultimately, at the end of the day, you hit the nail on the head. But we're in this conundrum, right, where you're like, no insurance companies are going to cover anything that's a Schedule One drug, right? Until they get the medical research, they're not going to cover it. But we can't do the medical research because it's considered a Schedule One drug, and no one will give the funding up to do the medical research on it. And then that we see like the institutions like I believe like Harvard, and there's been a bunch of other colleges and different places that have done research, but is it enough? Is it accredited? I mean, Tim, does that research from these colleges mean anything?
No, Joe, I think the more
Right?
important question is yes, obviously that will be implemented and that will be all that good stuff. To what point, from an insurance perspective, from a research and perspective, what is going to be enough for you, Cimone, to say, okay, hey, we need to look at this? Thomas, from a scientific perspective, Tim, from a legal perspective, what is going to be the amount of research that's going to get everyone looking at this?
Can I add one more? Let me add one more thing to that just I love that question. It's a great question. But now to add to that question, though, we're seeing all these colleges offer accredited courses. We're seeing a lot of these places off like banking and have the support. Why are the insurance agencies still looking at it from that point of view where that isn't it a cash crop for you? I mean, we talk about the green rush. Like is it worth the gamble? I mean, there's a lot of companies out here that, like you said, you offer the plans and stuff like that cover it, but is it worth the gamble right now? I mean, again, do you guys is the companies you work for backed by federal money? Oh, your mic's on mute.
Not bad because this is kind of funny.
Oh, no, I mean, it's an interesting question for me because it's like I hear a lot of great things about insurance, right? And like I believe, like Thomas was saying, it's a lot of options that we just don't have. Looks like she's on a phone call.
Like it's been for a
So,
very
well, no, it's very true. But what we'll do right now, actually, while we got a minute, and what I was trying to get to is Thomas's segment, right?
Yeah,
We're going to talk about some chopstick.
I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
right.
I'm so excited.
We kind of get sidetracked
as long
there.
as it happens before the end of the show, it'll happen, right? I mean,
Yeah, right.
I appreciate
we all know
Joe
Joe has a squirrel brain.
I'm so
Along. It's
sorry.
okay.
Well, it's great. It's great conversation. It's like I think it's like a lot of topics that we don't get to discuss a lot because a lot of us, again, we're in that gray area where it's like, Tom's like you're saying, is insurance available? Tim's going, hey, how do I get my clients insurance? Because this is what we have offered here in Vermont and it's up in our structures, right? So like we know,
the route to Canada was like you.
yeah, crop insurance. We look at what the Fed like we say what. Right, we're talking about what the government looks like that they offer for coverages for hemp, and like obviously we're talking about bringing cannabis in. We see all these states are going to recreational and legal, but they still don't have the banking and the insurance, right? But it's not like we have plans and offers for them, and depending on what state you live in. But anyways, let's get to the Vermont Grow Coach segment. We'll get right to that. We're learning how to make some chopstick. Winter's coming up, man, and I guess this is something that everybody can do at home, right, Tom?
Absolutely. I mean, you don't even need the chapstick tubes to do it. You can easily just use like a rubber silicone ducky. I'm sure everybody's got one of these lying around. As long as it isn't currently filled with dabs, you can easily fill it with your chapstick. In fact, if it's filled with dabs, you can use the dabs from it to make the chapstick and then fill it back up with your chapstick.
I love it. It's great. All right, guys, here we go. Vermont Grow Coaching, making some chapstick, infused chapstick.
Hey guys, Tom Vermont Grow Coaching here, and welcome to Grower's Guide, your weekly beginner-friendly cannabis tips and tricks. This week on Grower's Guide, we're going to be talking to you about how to make cannabis-infused lip balm. Need a little bit of canna on the go? Super easy with this lip balm list. Now, I do want to say it first, there have been a few people over the last few weeks that have told me that I am not animated. Not animated enough? I thought I was plenty animated. All right, so let's get right down to it. You're going to need about 3 ounces of beeswax. Then you're going to need 4 ounces of coconut oil. That coconut oil should be infused with about 2 grams of your favorite cannabis extract. If you don't know how to infuse your coconut oil with your extract, that's another video. Go ahead and take a look. The next thing you're going to need is 3 ounces of shea butter. The last need is 1 teaspoon of aloe powder. So that's it. You just need beeswax, infused coconut oil, shea butter, and aloe powder. That's it. All right. So let's get into it. Now you can do this on a double boiler or in a hot plate, but I find it easiest to do this on a magnetic stirring plate. I heat a plate to about 120 degrees, give or take, just hot enough to start melting some of the material. You will have to increase the temp slightly higher than that in order to get some of the beeswax to melt, but 120 is a good starting temperature, and it's slowly increasing from there just until you get to the point of having everything melted. So you see here, we're going ahead and adding in all the ingredients to get us started. We've added in our coconut oil and our beeswax. You've got the infusion in there. And we're going to go ahead and get ready to have this melt down a little bit. Once it melts down a little bit, we'll go ahead and turn the stirring plate on and have that finish the emulsion for us. All right, so we've got the magnetic stirring plate going, and you can see it is a little bit on the greener side right now, but don't worry, that is going to dissipate as the rest of the beeswax goes ahead and melts. Look at that. So you see here, I've got a nice big syringe that I'm going to go ahead and fill up each of these tubes with. I want to overfill them just a little bit so that when they cool, any amount of holes will otherwise be filled in. Once these have gone ahead and cooled, at that point, we'll be able to go ahead and scrape off any of the residue. You'll see that we are using a mold here. This mold is absolutely fantastic for this process. It's not necessary, but it does make cleanup a lot easier. All right, so now that we've filled our lip balms, we go ahead and let those sit for about 20 minutes or so, just to let them harden enough so that we can go ahead and scrape them off entirely and slap the caps on. Super easy, super simple. You can see as the lip balm cools, it loses its green color and looks much more like a traditional lip balm. Let's give it a quick scrape. Look at that, super easy. Some additional tips. You can easily add essential oils to your blend. For this mixture, I used about 30 drops of essential oils. Today I used rosemary, eucalyptus, lemongrass, and peppermint oils. It's going to give a nice flavor and aroma, as well as some additional medicinal properties. Let's give it a try. Wow, that's pretty good. I really like the mintiness that I get and the little bit of tingling that I feel on my lips. I don't really taste any sort of cannabis. There's definitely no sort of cannabis aroma to this blend at all. You can't really see this too well, but it's not really green in color or anything either. It's more a yellowish in color. Now, in the event that you don't have lip balm tubes, I definitely suggest you go and get yourself some. Don't let that, and you're good to go. Now, this particular infusion is not extremely strong when using as lip balm, but that makes it fantastic as a medicinal benefits throughout the day. If you have any questions or concerns or would like to set up a consultation appointment, please reach out to us at vermontgrowcoach.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram or contact us directly at 802-342-5381. Until next time, have a great week. We got to do something about that playback, Joe.
Do you not have sound?
No, it had sound, but it was choppy as hell.
Yeah,
I don't know if anybody else could see it very well. And all I saw was like choppiness and tin can voice the whole time. unfortunately.
Oh man.
Actually in Canada, I got the full field haul.
I will have to relook at it. We've had this issue a couple of times on some things. I noticed my internet's been in and out again today. We thought we had the issue fixed for the last few months, but it seems to be coming back again. Hopefully it wasn't my internet. It's another great segment though. And Tom, you make it look very easy for everybody, which I mean, in reality, it's not really hard, is it?
No, I mean, the only part that I really skip in this segment is to start with some infused cannabis oil. So if you already have concentrates on hand, or even if you just have cannabis flower on hand, it's easy enough to decarb it and infuse it. And I think I actually have a video kicking around showing how to do that if people don't know how to do that. So they can go out and search out that video too. But super simple and easy to make. If you already have your product decarbed and ready to go, you can make up 20 bottles in 15 minutes.
No, I seen the little spirally whirly gizmo. Looks like a snow globe with like some cool product inside floating around on your Facebook and social media all week long, and you've been teasing this thing, right? What is that A and B? Is that something that everybody that wants to make lip balm need to make lip balm?
So that is a magnetic stirring plate.
Can we make it with hemp?
So I'm sorry, what was that, Danica?
Can we make it with hemp?
Yes. Yep. So I can actually make it with hemp or cannabis. You know, THC, CBD, it's all hemp and cannabis to me. They're all the same thing. It's just one is regulated as being under 0.3% THC or whatever the country may deem fit for hemp. And I really just see them both as cannabis in the end anyway. Just one is CBD, one is THC. I think that they both work really well together, and everything should either be a 1-to-1, no more than a 5-to-1 ratio in reality for most medicines. But I got off track a little bit. Where was I, Joe? Don't mind me, I've had too many today.
We're talking about, is that the little whirly gizmo thing that we're talking about?
Oh, yes, the magnetic stirring plate. Yeah, so the magnetic stirring plate is actually pretty cheap. I think that one only cost me about $50, give or take. So it's pretty much just an electric heat plate that has a dial that allows you to adjust the heat anywhere from about 85 degrees up to about 500 degrees. And then it also has another dial that adjusts the speed of a magnet that travels underneath the heated disc. Now, that little white piece that you saw me drop in there, that's actually a magnet in itself, or a little rod that has a piece of steel in it. When you put that in the jar and turn up the dial for the magnetic portion of the stirring plate, it will determine how fast that rod spins so that you can properly mix on your heat plate for an extended period of time without having to tire out your arm doing this.
Nobody wants to do that unless it's self-satisfying. We don't want to ruin our arms like that.
Right? No, I mean it's a lot of work whisking it in and blending it out so it's smooth and you get everything obviously consistent throughout the whole product, right? So you don't have inconsistencies through your chapstick, so it'd be kind of weird, right? And that's usually how it kind of promotes separation as well.
Absolutely, it works fantastic. As an emulsifier, just as long as you use the proper waxes when you're doing the combination, you can actually use this to do quite a few infusions. Some people have tried to use it to do as far as to make something more along the lines of nanomolecules. I don't think it quite works that well, but it definitely works really well for infusing things. I'll even use it for making homemade salad dressings from time to time. Throw a little bit of chopped hemp leaf in there. A little bit of CBD oil and a little THC dabs, throw in some vinegar and a couple of spices, and you're good to go.
That's nerd teching out right there. It's awesome. I love it. Anyways, awesome.
I keep myself busy.
Quick question, and because we have sweet Cimone on the line, how does that work for insurance purposes? Because I get a lot of questions about end product and doing all of this awesome stuff that a good friend is doing with Chapstick. How does that work from an insurance perspective? How do you insure your product line?
Yeah. So great question. So that goes under what we consider product liability. right? And so there's two different ends on that. There's one that the retailer will definitely can be able to take, and then there's also a perspective where the actual distributor or wholesaler can take, and then they extend that coverage over to the retailer when they purchase. So if you are a end user, if you're a retailer, then you want to either obtain for your retail space, you want to have product liability for all the products that you have. And then in addition to that, if you don't want to coverage that, you can always ask your vendor, do they have a vendor's liability that extends to over all of their products? And that's kind of how that goes.
So
Understand
it's
this.
something that you
One second before, wait a minute. Before,
wait, yeah.
understand this, that the person that gets sued or the entity that gets sued is always going to be usually the person that got it to them. So the consumer, even though we track everything from seed to sale and everything else in all of our tracking systems, it could be a disconnect in the manufacturing process, the testing process, the travel process, or whatever. But the person that usually gets sued is the person that actually hands the product to the consumer. So that's how that goes. Cool.
No, that makes total sense. So, and that's what your service does. That's what you guys are up to. If I come to you and I'm like, hey, I'm Jon Snow in the winter, but I really want to do this, and I'm thinking of this. That's something that you like that your insurance company provides your customer to say.
Insurance companies that cover cannabis do. So us included, we're not licensed in Vermont, and so we can't do well. That would be considered an offering, and I'm not going to jail for nobody. So that's not an offering, okay? So understand this. I understand this. I am very compliant. So we're not offering you anything, but that is a service that is that is a product, a protection product that if a company was registered in Vermont would be able to offer entities.
Amazing.
Now, I ain't going to jail for nobody.
Right. No, and then
But
every state's a
also,
little
but
different here.
you would tell them point blank, hey, here's what you need to do. You need to talk to our good friend Tim, who is compliant, our good friend lawyer. But that's something
Tim
that
can't do it either because Tim is not an insurance agent. Right. So again, listen to what I just said. Right. So Tim nor I, what we're doing is giving you general information. So I'm going to say this to you one more time. If I were a retail in place and I was looking at doing a product and getting it to a consumer, I would make sure I found an insurance agency or a company that would be able to offer product insurance.
Now, do you see?
Tim, can we get a Tim?
Right. Now, another quick question. Now, like we're talking about the product retailer insurance stuff like that in America here and how that whole system works, right? Like, we talk about this a lot with like consumer protection. I mean, how many cases do you see where like there's consumer protection actions going against companies now for like either fraudulent labeling or things of that nature right now? Is that another issue that we see in the insurance industry?
I think that we might see more of that in the future. So this is the thing. I'm gonna say this in a very colloquial way. Nobody wants to fuck up. Meaning, this is the thing. This is such an emerging industry. Even with edibles, we know that edibles are really different, right? The way that it hits it, right? So once it goes into your body or whatever, you can have, and you can really freak out from it, right? You can really freak out from the whole edibles thing, and so there could be some negative and some positive. We all know that people have had different experiences. Second thing is that most people that actually are new to cannabis, they usually choose edibles for whatever reason, because you don't have to smoke it. People don't want to be new smokers or whatever. To answer your question, there have been very, very few lawsuits from a consumer standpoint. And I think a lot of people are just going and sleeping it off. Nobody wants to fuck up the whole industry. Nobody wants to be the one that does the lawsuit and makes everything go bad.
Right.
After we go federal and all that other stuff, then we'll see a lot of lawsuits. Right. That's just what industries do. But right now, nobody wants to be the one that dropped the ball and, because you got high and you ain't like it, can't none of us do. Nobody wants to be that person. So I think a lot of the negative, or not necessarily negative, but people that may have had a not so pleasurable experience with the product, I think they're keeping it to themselves.
Yep. No, I hear you there. I mean, again, it's like state to state. So a lot of our state guidelines and insurance company guidelines, like Tom said, here we don't have those options. Like Tim, we don't have those options. We were talking about earlier where we can't offer clients here in Vermont the same kind of, coverages that someone can offer people out in Michigan right now, right? And that's an emergency. That's an emergent, not an emergency, but an emergent industry. That's a beautiful looking industry from where I sit, right? A lot of crazy things are happening in Michigan. But with that being said, one thing I want to talk to Tim really quick about was Mexico, right? The Senate committee
right over to Mexico
legalization, right? We haven't. It seemed like we talked about Mexico quite a bit for a while. Then it kind of got quiet, and then COVID hit, and now we see the Senate is now approving cannabis legalization with a bill for the floor. Vote plan soon. So what's that look like for them, you think? And does that have a big impact? Like we talk about New Jersey having a big impact. Does actually, we had Canada make a big impact? What's the impact on the U.S. market from legalization of that standpoint?
That's a good question. You probably write a thesis on that.
Right.
It would be fantastic. I mean, then now we would be sandwiched between two federally legal cannabis. We'd be the outlier. And all of that happening within a span of a decade. I mean, that's incredible. If there's anything to kind of push our legislatures, our Senate, our House to move forward on this, our federal legislators, that certainly doesn't hurt. Does it have any direct impact on us? I mean, that's impossible. We could all guess, but, we won't see in for 5 years what that effect's going to have. I think it's going to have a great effect on Mexico. Prohibition, the sale of controlled substances is one of the main reasons cartels have been able to, have so much influence, have so much money, have so much power, start taking that away from them. And that's, in my mind, a good first step towards maintaining rule of law. So I think it's a fabulous thing. I'm very excited to see two major nations, Mexico and Canada, on either side of us, adopt seeing rational legalization. And you know what? Canada hasn't fallen apart. Danica, when you guys legalize, does Skyfall start jumping off buildings? No.
Here's the thing. I cannot respond to that unless you say my name properly. And it's Danica.
Danica. Okay, I apologize. I know somebody who pronounces it differently, which is why it's in my head. But Danica, I will not forget that again.
What's it, Danica Patrick? I'm being silly. What was your question?
No, I'm just saying, once Canada legalized cannabis, country didn't fall apart, right? Fire didn't start raining.
No, it's little. I'm going to be honest, it's a little bit. Because from an agricultural standpoint,
I mean, from a society
rush. It was like the green rush, like I said a million times. Nobody understood what exactly that was that it looked like. And these farmers didn't know what it was to do industrial hemp cultivation. They didn't know what CBD meant. So as incredible as it is, we're happy that Canada has legally, kind of come together on that. We're still figuring it out. And we'll get there. And I promise you, America will beat you. But
what I was asking is, I mean, societally, like the Canadian society did not collapse when you legalized cannabis. People didn't start jumping off of buildings, committing, all these crimes. 8-year-olds were running around with joints, right? I'm guessing.
People are,
we're good. But neither. What do you mean? Neither did you guys. You guys collapsed when you voted in.
But that's what the prohibitionists say will happen. If we legalize and end society as we know it, it's going to be chaos.
Accidents, like teen usages, like all these things were going to happen, and we're going to see all these crazy things happen. That's what the prohibition has been saying for years. I mean,
we see another country like Mexico legalized, and again, nothing happened except some nice economic development. And of course,
but not really. Honestly, not really. Like, there's been no economic. Actually, Joe, I'm so excited for you to see our good from Nepal on your show and TV, because that's a huge thing, and because it's a Hindu place, and the only thing that they had to work from was Canadian I guess, Canadian info about what our agriculture looks like, not so much about legal, not so much about that. But in that sense, they've now allowed hemp to be grown-ish barrel. So I'm Joe. I'm very, very excited for you to speak to me about that. Tim, I'm excited for you to move to Canada because the American system is
I
shit.
thought about it a lot. If I thought I could actually do it.
Well, you're obviously
5
going to
years
have
will
to
put a lot on.
represent Joe when he comes and lives in Canada at the farm.
Right, we'll be there. I mean, it's unique. The differences that we have. That's why you're on the show right now with that unique perspective. Which, in this perspective, is very different because you have a government basically accepted, sponsored, and backed cannabis program. We don't have that here. We have a state backed programs, and it's so separate and individualized in each state with their programs and how their programs function within themselves, whether it's on a medical level or a recreational level. I mean, I've seen calendars now, and most people who follow cannabis on social media will see these calendars where, like, literally, it's every state has some sort of cannabis something going on, whether it's on a medicinal level, recreational level. Some states are just have decriminalized everything, right, throughout the window. So we're getting there, and we're starting to see that more and more often now because, I mean, the research is there. Like we had a conversation about the effectiveness of that and how that works. And I think a lot of us.
So you really, and I hate to interrupt you, and I'm so sorry, but you know that the actual reason, whether it's state by state or government by government or country by continent, the only reason that we are lagging and taking our sweet, sweet time is because the government cannot figure out a way to monetize it. Can I get an amen? It's the only reason.
Well, that's your government in our states as well. I mean, many states face that same battle. I think Tim can agree. Like, the biggest question is, how do we monetize? We just got legalized in Vermont, and I don't think it was like on a level. I mean, I guarantee it's a different level, but from a mindset of how do we finance, fund, and get this program launched, I think it's the same mentalities when you approach these programs in every state, right? How do we make money? How do you make it so farmers like Tom can grow a farm, do what he wants to do, right? Because obviously Tom is in this industry to be a grower, right? That's what his thing is, right? Tom, tell me if I'm wrong, right? But like at the end of the day,
at the end of the day, you're 100% correct. I do the coaching thing because that's what I can legally do with a business at the moment and not get into trouble. My end goal is definitely to cultivate. I still want to be able to help medical patients and veterans, and they're definitely always going to be at the forefront of my mind. I just want to help them in a different way. I'd rather be cultivating more and being able to provide more medicine to them as opposing to teaching them to grow their own medicine.
Right. So we look at all these people in this industry that want these positions, and every state's different. So Thomas has different outlines that he has to withstand. Tim, same thing. He's in the cannabis industry. He has a business, right? But like, and we were talking to Cimone, like, what are the legalities of insurances and coverages and options for these people? She mentioned her 3 states that they work in, guys. So anything you heard prior to on this show is in reference to her 3 states that she's legal in. All right. So let's just make that known. So everybody in Vermont's not calling her tomorrow going, I need insurance, and she can't do anything. She's gonna laugh at you guys. But
I like it, just
right. But the idea is that the options are out there. They're coming, right? There's like there's 5 companies. They're willing to back the cannabis movement, right? So it's a matter of finding the people in Vermont that are willing to take on that risk and work with these companies and work with the insurance companies to bring that movement out to these other states, right? That's the problem with us. Like when Canada goes legal, that country, it's kind of like a state for us. You know what I mean? For us, it's every different state is so different, right? And then one of the other things is, outside of insurance, things like that, is we're starting to see money, like digitalized money. Cimone probably has a lot of conversation on this too because she's our cash counselor, right? But like one of the hardest problems in our industry is banking, right? And how do we get our companies to get money, get funded, do banking? And one of the things I want to talk to Tim about is in Missouri, a CBD retailer. They had a judge's. The retailer got won a lawsuit over getting his money withheld. Like we're seeing that a lot in this industry, especially with digitalized money, with like the PayPals and those digitalized backing. So this was on hempindustry.com. And it was just a CBD retailer. So within this thing, they had $66,000 withheld and they won it back, right? So we're seeing this a lot. This is a legal state. I mean, and we talk about rights. This is a cool reason to talk to Cimone, but me and Tim talk about this a lot. Like, what does this what this does this company in a legal state that has a CBD retail company that's doing digitalized money, but because of the digital money carrier, right, which is usually Stripe or a Pay or whatever in that balance, which they, if you guys actually read their small print, it literally tells you that they don't want to work with CBD companies, and that's where the violations are coming involved. What are the options? And you, as an insurance person, does this
Yeah.
become an issue for you?
No, so I'm a money person. Let's do that first, okay?
Right.
So that I'm a capitalist.
Get it right, Joe.
So
Right. All right. All right. So guys,
So whatever that is, bring it in. Bring it in.
all right, guys. So I mean that's one of our questions here. You know what I mean? Like I mean, Danica, I know like in Canada, a lot of these situations are differently. Are all looked at differently and approached differently and accomplished differently here for us, and like Tim and will talk to us here. It's like it's even from a federal level, when we go federal in America, I think they're going to hand over to the states, right, Tim? So it's going to be more of a state-led initiative for legalizations and whatever those current laws in those states will go. So like Thomas is, I mean, potentially, right? I mean, that's what the last administration was kind of like talking about, right? Who knows what happens with this new administration? That could be a whole nother conversation. I think we all could sit here and either, I'm a little worried about the new administration as well. All right, we're back.
You have to remember that we're federal. We're not state in Canada. So
well, that's the difference, right?
Okay, I'm so sorry. I had to step away. So really quickly, how this goes is on the federal level, we're still waiting on the Safe Bank Act to be able to be an inception, and so that is the one that takes off the slap on the hand for the banks to be able to distribute. Now, if we look back a couple of years ago, do y'all remember seeing Dennis Rodman wearing a T-shirt called Potcoin?
Yeah.
Y'all remember that?
Hey,
Okay, so about 3-4 years ago, one of the things is that they were really trying to put together crypto and cannabis. They say they went together as peas and carrots, but it never really came in an inception, because then we ended up getting the big bubble from Bitcoin and it bust. But there were ganja coin, hemp coin, and a host of other things, but they never really came in an inception, and that became kind of a way where businesses and entities would be able to participate in having their POS system, and a host of other things. At that time, too, there was still places like banks like Chase that were shutting down accounts if they were dealing in cannabis. Now, so that's that part. The second part is that there's two ways of banks to be chartered. One way is for the bank to be chartered by federal. The other way is for the bank to be chartered by the state. If it's a state chartered bank, like a credit union or a smaller bank, then they can participate in it. In addition to that, the POS systems that are there, you have to understand as a business owner that entity has the right to do business with you or not. So if that company did not do the due diligence to find out if this company was cannabis friendly, that's their fault. Okay, that is your fault. When we do marketing, just like anything else, Facebook, anything else, it is your responsibility as the you have to understand, everybody don't like weed. That's just it. Everybody don't like weed.
Yeah.
Everybody, there are some entities that might not take liquor stores. Let me tell y'all, when I was an investment advisor, I had a group of nuns, and they would only invest in things that were friendly. We could not put their money in any holding that was a gun company, tobacco, or pornography, if that was their subsidiary. So people have the right to be socially deciding on what they want to do, and so you need to make sure that entity is accepting of your business. That's point blank, period.
No, it's an amazing point. I mean, I think you probably see that more than anybody, is like what those little discrepancies are that people want and don't want their money touching, because we talk about this on investment levels because of the federal government, right? They're afraid to take on, in some of the situations where they can take on these risks, people still choose not to because they're back. They risk losing funding. They risk losing a lot of things outside that, just because it's not only because of cannabis, but from personal beliefs, right? People don't need to sponsor you. People don't need to fund you. But like if you're a major sports franchise and you start promoting CBD, the risk that you might lose like your Coliseum support is going to be higher than most, because like what what Simone was just saying. There's a lot of people that come to the plate with money that say, I don't want to be touching cannabis. I don't want to be touching pornography. I don't want to be touching music or I think you probably hear politics a lot as well. You know what I mean? Because people, some people decide either they want to be on one side or the other or not involved at all because it's a dividing line, right? So everybody comes in with their different approaches to what they want with their money. But like even with radio, when we were on radio, we couldn't commercialize, right? Because it's a federally, it's a Schedule 1 drug you're not supposed to support, or technically our show is in support of promoting a Schedule 1 substance. So technically right now, what we would be doing this on commercialized radio for a long time was considered a felony, right? Now they've released that felony chart to say, if you want to promote on commercialized radio, it's up to the radio station because they get funding. Now, a lot of their funding for most of these places are, guess where from? The federal government, right? So you run that battle. So they kind of give you a rope to hang your own self with, right? All air, every bit of the air that we hear anything on that gets transmitted upon is owned by the federal government. That's why it's the FCC, right? So people have to be aware of what they're doing, how that happens. So when we did our show, that's why we started on a community-based educational platform, because they were allowed to do this as education, right? We had a coverage that allowed us to do this. And now with everything going on with COVID, we're on this social media platforms. We don't see these restrictions right now, right? Which is a good thing, because if everybody saw the Mark Zuckerberg Senate debate yesterday, holy crap, I would expect a lot of changes coming down the pipe soon for Facebook that would affect what we do every day. Our promotion of what we're doing right now might not be allowed here shortly. We're starting to see live shows, music, people that do production not being allowed to do their live feeds, and they're getting their videos taken down, and all these guys are coming in claiming royalties and different natures of that. If we played a song right now that was a popular song on the radio, we'd be flagged on Facebook for a royalty infringement, right? So a lot of these weird inner working parts. But the big thing I want to talk about is the banking industry and like what, how this works for people. What are the options for people? Again, is it the credit unions? We're seeing these companies get a lot of major lawsuits lately, Tim. What is going on? I mean, we see support, we see legalization. We got 5 more states crossed, and we're still going after people for selling CBD and because of a labeling or because of the way they process the sale. Correct?
Let's be careful of why we're saying we. These are generally state prosecutions, and they're in, various ideologies who have prosecutors who are going after them. It's a patchwork of laws. We have, this across this country now. We've just got so many different concepts on cannabis, whether it's adult use, whether it's medical, whether it's CBD and hemp. It's dramatically different across the entire landscape. And that really creates a lot of confusion trying to create an industry. It creates a lot of risk. It creates a lot of misinformation. People hear something about one area and then they assume that is the truth in their area as well. And it's just, state by state, and in some states, county by county. Look at California. Delivery is allowed in this county, but it's not allowed in that county, and you can deliver there, but you can only deliver there. I mean, it's like, it creates a lot of confusion. And I think that law enforcement especially is not interested in learning the nuances. They do what they do best. Go in like bulls in a china shop, arrest everybody, we'll figure it out later, and that type of mentality is what we need to get over. And I think that this is still the remnants of a lot of that, I think.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's crazy to think about where we're at right now and what we're going to be facing here shortly. But we saw earlier in the week last week, or after the show last week, that marijuana regulators from 19 different states formed a group to coordinate legalization implementation. Is this a great move? I mean, obviously any move is a great move right now, but what does this show for us? Is this going to be a bill that will actually reach somewhere for us, or is this just going to be?
Who knows? Again, we are so early on. Everybody sees marijuana legalization and it's like, oh, just like you said earlier, we passed our bill. Oh, the shop's open yet? Woo, it could take some time. And this is Canada, Mexico, in the United States eventually. We need a decade. This is a brand new industry. Things don't happen overnight. There's going to be a lot of mistakes made. There's going to be a lot of regulations that are going to need to be loosened up. It's got, it takes time to develop. It takes time to develop supply chains. It takes time to weed out the bad actors. It takes time to really establish the industry. It doesn't happen overnight. But when we start talking about groups like, 17 states working on, congruent legislation and legalization, that is incredible. Will that particular initiative come of anything? Who knows? Maybe. But what that does is demonstrates this is the future. This is what we need to do. We need consistency. We need standardization. We need standard regulation, standard consumer protection, standard, seed to sale tracking. We don't need 18 different systems in, 19 different states. What we need is to know that how cannabis is being regulated here is pretty much the same as it's being regulated in New York, pretty much the same as it's being regulated in California or Michigan or Florida. Sure, each state's going to have its own little nuances, no problem. But we've got a general idea nationwide. Very similar to how alcohol is regulated. We know that alcohol is 80 proof and 40 proof. States may choose to close liquor stores a little earlier than others, or, have dry counties. Sure, that you can tweak. But for the most part, we have a consistency. We have an understanding. We know the age of alcohol is 21 everywhere. Again, it's that consistency that can create a strong industry. And that takes time. That takes time. So
that takes federal legalization. So that's not going to happen until it's federally legal. So the reason why there is a sticker on tobacco and tabs is because it's federally legalized. Until that, and the reason is because we have interstate ruling in our constitution that states can do business within themselves, right? And so they can be able to make those decisions. And that's not going to happen until then. Now, there are some things that our businesses can do and states can do in front of that, making sure that there's different certifications. The more things that policies and procedures are put in by the states and they become uniform, that's great. And if you also notice, there are 19 of the states that are actually pooling together to be able to have this conversation. So what I'm sharing with you is that it is happening. Everybody knows that this is happening. We know that anybody that's 10 years old or younger will never know life without marijuana, right? And so it's happening. But to Tim's point is that it is a marathon. It's going to take a little bit longer for us to take it. But what we can do is, and what you guys can do is make sure that you are talking to your politicians. Make sure that you are urging your state representatives, your senators, your congressmen. Talk to them about what it is that you want. Get involved. I mean, this is a great way for us to be able to share information. But guess what? It doesn't move public policy.
Right.
Thank you. I love everything about what you just said.
No, you're totally right. It's something we preach on the show every week. It's amazing that we have to preach this every week. We have to be the squeaky wheel that gets the grease on a level. Like the grassroots is great, but until we get on a political, like a politician level, we can smoke weed and all the festivals we want until we get busted. We're not gonna get nowhere. We're doing a little bit of news coverage this week, and I want to shift gears. One quick thing, because I saw a great article I want to talk to Thomas about. We usually talk to Timothy about the news and the local laws and things that we see, because we love Tim. But this is something that I think impacts a lot of the growers, and I want to hear Thomas's perspective on this. And I don't know if you caught it. I'm sure you did, because you're amazing and awesome. But the new genetics test is coming out that predicts if cannabis can be THC or CBD rich. So they're proposing a test. How crucial is farmers and people within like the actual production side of things to have a test of this nature to help tell if it's THC or CBD rich? Because I mean, obviously we have a 0.3 level. We talked about the repercussions of going hot, right? Insurances that we might be available, but like, with this test, I don't know if you saw the article on Tom, but it's a University of Minnesota research test, right? So they have validated genetic tests can predict whether cannabis can produce mostly CBD or THC, and that's what they kind of did it for. It's for the future farmers, so they don't violate federal hemp laws, right? How crucial is this?
Right. I mean, so it's actually, it's fantastic on the hemp front, because when it comes down to it, we've had the trouble in Vermont in the past where hemp farmers have planted seed, or they've planted clones that they've obtained from what they thought was a reputable source. And next thing you know, they're getting flagged for having high THC concentrations in their crop. There's so many other things that can cause issues with your seeds and make them develop a higher THC concentration as well. So, knowing that you have a CBD-rich strain to begin with, something that you're already starting off the bat and starting a good vegetating plant with, that has a good run to it, and not having to wait until you're 4 or 5 weeks into flower and realize, oh crap, everything's hot, I got to get rid of it, is, I mean, amazing for farmers. Absolutely amazing.
No, and it's I think it's something that everybody needs to look into, especially on an industrial level, because I think we've run into a lot of issues. I mean, Danika's been on the show, and we talked about her farm and some of the issues they've run to in even in Canada. Like, we talk a lot about even when you buy feminized seeds. Tom's had shows on it. We've talked a lot about it. There's no guarantee that you're not going to either feminize your crop or go hot or what that seed produces, right? Because you're buying bulk items from hopefully a reputable person. We've seen non-reputable people sell seeds, and we've had drastic instances from that, right? One of the things I want to talk about was smoking.
Sorry to interrupt you, but that's where Cimone comes into, and especially when you guys in the U.S., we're saying, like, if it grows hot, if it does this, if it does that. That's why it's so crucial and paramount to know what your insurance policies are, and to know, like, for instance, in Canada, if you don't plant before June 10th, you do not get crop insurance. Mm-hmm. So, and that it kind of leaves us at the force majeure.
Well, I think if I remember right, I think if I remember right, didn't Cimone say it was something of that nature here in America too? If you didn't have a crop in the ground by a certain point in time, the insurance.
There's a point, right? And that's how you insure it, and that's how you, like, exactly to your point. We're all rolling the dice, but I'm going to send you guys an article, and it is hemp and cash crop. And it talks a lot about that, right? In terms of converting soy and nitrogen and all that good stuff. What does that look like now for converting hemp? And exactly, Joe, to your point, is you will literally be screwed if you put it into the ground before it's meant to be, and you're going to lose money. That's where Cimone, I think, could come in and let everybody know exactly. Like I said, I don't know when it works in the U.S.
Well, state by state again. Like Thomas and Tim has talked about, what we do here in Vermont. Thomas has a good aspect of what they do all around New England. We've talked, even our good friend Adam, right? Souza, who's actually show you'll be on later tonight. Just a quick plug. With him in Mass, because of the laws, he what was it, Thomas? He was literally like 0.0056 over the legal limit. It was ridiculous, right? And the state made him burn the crop. You know what I mean? So in that issue, being in Mass,
horror stories of that.
And honestly, that's the biggest thing about crop insurance. Crop insurance will not cover your crop if you're hot. It just won't. I mean, that's now you've got if you've got hemp insurance.
Pretty please repeat that.
Hemp insurance being offered right now will not protect you, will not pay out if your crop is hot. That's considered completely different. That's considered marijuana or, adult use or medical cannabis insurance. But your
Timothy, I just told you no, that's not true. There's a new product that doesn't test if it's hot, that it can be subsidized. Now, I'm not telling you to go, understand this, I'm not telling you to go and apply for your full cannabis, but there are insurances now that are coverage of cannabis and does not test if it goes high.
I was saying hemp insurance alone, hemp crop insurance off the USDA.
The only difference between, so I'm gonna say this to you clearly. The only difference between hemp and marijuana is whether or not it goes through we know that so we can look at it and say one is bushier, one is thinner, yada, yada, yada. Okay, get past that. Once you get past that, the big thing on the subsidized, what you're trying to say is that hemp product or hemp coverage would only be if it goes high. What I'm telling you is that there has been new insurance created. And what you're saying isn't true. It does not test if it goes hot. So if it is hot and it still has a crop, nobody's testing it, it will still give it the coverage and they still get the subsidy. But I will tell you, that is a 2020, 2021 product. So that was the truth, what Tim said, but now it has evolved, and that's how quickly the industry is changing. So come March.
So Cimone, I was gonna say, so Cimone, in like that instance I was just talking about, we all have a good friend that we all know well who's in our industry here in Massachusetts, right? Adam Sousa. He has a great farm. He has a hemp farm. He's been on our show recently. He told us a story about how when he went hot, he was literally a 0.30056 or something like that, and the state literally made him burn it in front of the state police. You know.
Oh well, that
now,
has absolutely nothing. No, so that's the state. But now Massachusetts, so that would be whether or not the state regulates it. So insurance has absolutely nothing to do with what the state. The state is the state. That's who gives you your license and your permission. So that's what that is. So if he gets in trouble for that, and if they're saying your license is only deemed for hemp, and if it goes hot, you in trouble. That's your business. We don't got nothing to do with that. But I'm saying, as far as the protection needs, if the crop went bad or something like that, that can be controlled, right? But as far as him being in trouble with the state, no, insurance don't cover nothing that has nothing to do with the government.
Yeah, I think that's what
I was just saying. Hot hemp that exceeds the state limit.
Yeah. So that's that part, right? But we do have coverage. I heard him say insurance, and I thought he was saying so. No. Tim is totally right. If you in trouble, your ass is in trouble. You should have did it.
That is perfect, Cimone. That is great.
That's what I was gonna say. Like if what you're saying is like it doesn't, like it was true on his comment, I'm like, you're gonna have a million phone calls, right? Because everybody's gonna call you.
No. I'm sorry. Then I messed up, because no. If your ass is in trouble, you in trouble. But there are insurance products now that will cover, like if it goes hot and you lost the crop, and it wasn't like let's say you lost 60% of your crop or whatever, but the insurance that we have now will not test it, right? But no, if you wasn't supposed to be growing it, that's your ass, Mr. Postman. The government, that they're gonna get you.
Oh my goodness.
So like in it.
Hold on, quick question. Sorry to interrupt you, Joe. Quick question. From an insurance perspective, if you guys cover it for 60%, what exactly does that cover? If you do some bonehead, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about growing hot products. Is it, you guys cap at 60% in the US?
No. It can be up to 80% coverage for it. And that's going to be, it depends on what your different perils are going to be. That's going to look at your environment. Of course, if you had an over freeze, all of this is outdoor, right? So anything that would cause like perils or risks that would cause from, so heavy rain, bad soilage, all of those different things that make crops go bad. Bad equipment, broke down of whatever your the stuff that shoots up the water. So all of those different things can be things that will be covered. That's going to be on your particular policy, and then also whatever endorsements that you add onto there. So that's pretty much how that goes, right? But there's different, perils that it covers.
Okay, interesting. In Canada, we call that. I don't know if you guys call it the same.
It's amazing that we're.
It's called what, baby?
Force majeure. Like anything that is like nature out of our hands. Anything.
No, we call it that's called a hazard. We're not French. We're English. It's called a hazard.
Maybe we're a little
it's an event that happens to a direct loss. It's a hazard. Okay. Let's go with it.
Force majeure is illegal.
Word. And you know what we say in America?
That's amazing.
You know what we say in America? Shit happens.
No, in Canada,
we gotta ensure that shit, right?
Hold on. Do you know what we say in Canada? We're sorry.
Sorry. Oh yeah, that's sweet. Y'all so polite. That's one thing I love about Canada. I love how clean the streets are, and I love that y'all are super polite. Nothing like
me. Always, baby. You always have a place in Canada, and we'll be very.
What part of Canada do you live in? What part of Canada?
I'm in Ontario, so it's southwestern. Just
I know where
in border.
So, what in Windsor?
Like a little bit north of Windsor. Yeah, mama.
Are you serious? Oh, I go to Windsor all the time. We used to go over there to go to the casino.
Well, now you know where you have to come.
But one of my favorite city there is Toronto. So I used to go there for Carabana every year.
Oh my gosh, Caribbean is amazing.
Yeah, I love, man, I was, oh my goodness, to eat the street food and just hang out and party and walk the streets. Oh my goodness, I love Caribana.
If you want to do, I don't know what they're doing with Caribana this year, but I have a condo in Toronto that I rent out. So if you want to go and CNA,
oh shit, you done turned me on. Now I usually stay on King Street, but I definitely will go in there.
Well, to get you guys together after the show to discuss some Canadian trips, but it's an interesting perspective on Canada because a lot of things, and I'm sure it's hard to understand the differences because it's hard for us to understand the differences too. You know what I mean? We read a lot about it because of the way legalization happened, and we know it's government funded, and here we are in America trying to cheer that on. Like Tim was saying earlier, if Mexico does what they're looking like they're going to do. Now we're like New Hampshire and everything, right? We're like that in the middle that we have to make major strides, like Cimone's saying, and get a lot of these things up front so we can catch up to like these other two countries like Canada, right? Where we have federal support. One of the cool things there's a couple we're running late on time, guys, and there's a couple things I want to point out really quick because I think they're big things we need to consider and remind people of. One of them is that when we look at legalities and statewide legalities, a lot of these states, it's not legal to walk out and smoke a blunt in your front yard or walk around and consume on an open basis, right? But we see lawmakers in Wisconsin Capital vote to allow marijuana use in public. I think a lot of places that are legalized don't realize that this is not something that is accepted, right, Tim?
Montreal.
What does this do for
public consumption allowed? Yeah,
right,
good.
And that's huge if you think about it. Only Montreal, right? So we're looking at all these states that legalized recently.
Quebec, I think there's some other. Oh no, come on, Danica.
Quebec, I don't want to speak over you, but I was like,
oh no, Montreal.
So wrong. So so Quebec is it's like state, it's a province. And what they've implemented in Canada is the same thing that they would do with smoking tobacco. So you cannot be within a child facility.
Right. Wherever you can smoke.
A school bus, an operating vehicle, car, all that good stuff. You cannot be within 150 feet while taking cannabis or have anything to do with that. If you are, then it would be the same fine as having a DUI. That's what we're up to in Canada. I don't know what you guys are doing.
It's a big fine for an issue of that nature, right? But like I was saying with Tim, though, here,
Michigan and Illinois. Oh, I'm sorry. Michigan and Illinois both have consumption, right? Licenses that are coming out. So we are offering areas where there are consumption lounges, and that's an actual license that you can have. In addition to that, there are event licenses, right? So that you can give parties and be able to do it. There, the licenses are pretty reasonable. The consumption licenses, you can have an establishment and be able to utilize consumption. Just to kind of touch that on the insurance end, there is a lot of ventilation and other things that you have to do to be able to, have a place like this, but it is doable. And an infusion is actually
sorry to interrupt you, lovely, but that would sorry to interrupt you, but would that increase your personal insurance? Or that would
what do you mean? What do you mean your personal insurance? We're talking about business entities. So are you saying would that increase your business insurance?
Yeah, would that so let's say I own a company in Michigan.
Yeah.
And I want all that good insurance coverage. And it also happens that I solely smoke marijuana. Would that affect my
hold on, wait a minute. Let's say you have a bar. Let's make this dummy down. So you have a bar and you want to now be able to have people come in and smoke in your bar.
Right. And that's business, but also I have a personal policy with you that I go home and smoke weed. Would that affect the two?
First of all, you wouldn't have a personal policy with me because we don't do personal. So you would never have one with me. That's the first thing. The second thing is, again, those are two totally different things. They have nothing. So that's almost like me saying, I'm going to have a personal policy and you have a personal policy. Those are under two totally so different identities in Social Security. So they're separate. Your business entity has its own EIN number and you have your own. Nothing has anything to do with one of
Nothing
the other.
interferes.
No, you can smoke weed till you blue in the face and have a tire shop. What do that got to do with anything?
Right. Yeah, you're looking at it from the business side of things.
Everything about you, I love.
Yeah,
Okay.
that don't have nothing to do with it. So those are two totally different entities. I could care less if you smoke weed or whatever you do. It has absolutely nothing to do with it. And so once you obtain your license and you do meet all of the qualifications, our job is to secure and to ensure your business model.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yep. So like
the only two insurance you have is healthcare or life insurance. Either one of them, I just told you how to work those out, so we done.
Yeah, exactly. Which is great because I mean, again, a lot of people don't realize. I think a lot of people are scared. We don't realize it's a wicked gray area for tons of people. The insurance question, like you know, we've heard all sorts of different outlooks and views on insurance, and it's right down to the farmer with Tom, and you know, from a law standpoint with Tim, which is, you know, it's unique about insurance. Now, one of the last things I want to end the show on, guys, and I'm going to start Thomas off with this because I know we talk about packaging and we talk about consumption and we talk about kids and affecting kids. And Cimone, I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Brand new article. The maker of Nerds candies, guys. We've all seen nerd ropes everywhere. We've all been able to consume them. I've had a few. They're great. They're powerful. They're strong. I think everybody that does a cannabis line probably makes a nerd rope by now, right? So they're prevalent in our markets, right? Right.
You don't know what a nerd rope is?
I legitimately don't. I'm sorry.
Oh my God, Canada, you're missing
We've got to
out.
have nerd ropes in Canada.
I know. I felt
you know what
like
nerds
really,
are? Like
really
Wonka nerds?
I'm sure everyone knows. And I was like, oh my gosh, I do not know. Please give me a brief synopsis.
You don't know what nerds are?
No, like nerds.
Tom, educate Danica really quick about nerd ropes and what they are.
Okay, so a nerd rope is like a candy taffy that's coated with citric acid filled sugar candy. So the nerds themselves are little pieces of like citric acid crystals that are coated with a sweet candy. You get grape, you get strawberry, lemon, and then
they good as
nerd
hell.
Ropes are ropes of taffy that are covered in those. And a lot of cannabis companies now are making them. But go ahead with your article, Joe.
Well, the one thing I want to point out too is like with these nerds, the way they manufacture them, a lot of them use spray-ons as well, which is something that me and Tom kind of talked about numerous times on the show, the effects of like the spray-on THC, and why that's not something you really want to be a part of, right? Now it can be good in some situations. I mean, I kind of steer away from it. I know a lot of manufacturers and these companies are spraying on candies. A lot of manufacturing companies are actually utilizing it and making candy. Like you saw a few weeks ago, Thomas showed us how to make some candy. If you guys are interested, you can find that archive on our In the Weeds page and on Thomas's Vermont Grow Coaching. Now I'm
going to have to make some actual nerd rope for next week, and we will do it without.
Don't get sued, right? Yeah, don't get sued.
We will actually use infused taffy.
For Canada, just do a special shout out to Canadian Nerd Rope. We will be so sorry.
Well, I know we love this subject and it's fun and it's crazy because when we talk about nerds, we think about kid candy, right? And this is one of the biggest issues that we talk about in packaging and in our industry, right? And right now with an unregulated industry, on a federal level, and this is why, you know, we talk about federal level and state run, and here I am, the idiot savant over here going, I still think we need a lot of federal outlines on it. And this is one of the things that we talk about a lot, especially when we talk about the medicinal side, the craft brewers, and the people that are not on a commercial mindset is let's not target kids, right? So Nerd Rope is now suing the manufacturer of Nerd Ropes, a company. You guys can read the article. It's a Chicago-based company. It's Tops Cannabis. So they're suing Tops Cannabis for making these nerd ropes and heavily producing them, right? Because they're called medicinal. So within all this lawsuit, like I hear like 5 or 6 things that we talk about a lot. It's selling packaging to that is kid. Like, hey, my kid wouldn't know the difference, right? And I'm sure none of our kids would really know the difference unless they can read. And how many kids really read the package and they see the package and it says nerds and they eat it, right? Which brings another question into the whole equation is they labeled it medicinal, right? If you guys pay attention to the show at all, Cimone, Tim, we talked about a lot of the big issues with labeling things medicinal or how we talk about things, because right now on a federal level, we can't do that here in America, right? Because we don't have, like we said, the research. Because we don't have federal.
Yeah, I see Tim cringe every time I mention treats anxiety or treats pain. I see him go, oh.
Medical claims scare me. That Nerds case is a trademark case. I mean, it's straight up. It's about trademark. It's, the Nerds candy saying you can't use our name, you can't use our trademark. Where copyright is, not
just like the Gorilla Glue thing.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the Gorilla Glue thing. And you're seeing this now with all the knockoffs candies. A lot of these cannabis edible brands were kind of mimicking Hershey bars or Kit Kat bars. That's all trademark infringement cases. And the companies who are suing are going to win every single time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and you bring a great point. But like we talk about, like I said, for me, when I saw the article, I'm like, kid stuff, right? Like we talk about that. Cimone had touched on that earlier, a little bit of the packaging issues and what we have to be responsible for in an unregulated market, right?
We'll see more of these lawsuits in the future. Like I said, people just limited to them right now because nobody want to be the person that totally jacked up the industry. You know what I'm saying? So, as any other industry is, it'll start to take more of its lawsuits, especially, it being a consumer product. We're coming out of COVID, so that creates a whole nother list of problems. And so no, we'll see them. They just nobody wants to be the one. Nobody wants to be the one. It's like, oh God damn, you messed it up for everybody. Nobody wants to be that one lawsuit. So we'll see them in the future once federal.
Well, Tim, what do you think about that? I mean, we have one of our favorite, most honored lawyers here sitting on the panel with us. I love you, man. How do you feel about that, though? I mean, we talk about this a lot, and like when we have regulation markets, right? When we get the structures and everything put in, now we have the basis, like Cimone was saying, like to go after people. Like, is this something that we should be kind of concerned about if we ever do get to that point? Like when we go legal and there's a structure, we're going to see a lot of this, aren't we?
It's like any other business. Follow the rules. I mean, yes, yeah. When you go from unregulated to regulated market, or the illegal market to the legal market, there's pluses and minuses to everything. It's great when you're illegal. You got no regulations. You don't have to worry about anything. You can mimic anybody you want. You can do anything you want because you're not regulated.
Right.
Regulation, yes, there are things that are going to suck. Paying taxes sucks. Following the rules sucks. No false advertising. No ripping off other people's trademarks. I mean, those are definitely the considerations that I think the cannabis industry has not had to take seriously. But if we're going to be a serious industry, and if we are serious about being a legitimate industry, we got to follow the rules.
Yeah. No.
Thank you.
You want rational rules. You want sane rules. You want rational regulation. You don't need over-regulation. But the basic rules of business are going to apply now to cannabis as well. And some people are cool with that, and others are not so cool with that.
Right.
Well said, Tim. That's the big takeaway from our whole today's show is that, I mean, you nailed it, is that if we want to be have real entities, every other industry and entity has rules. And they need to be fair, right? And they need to be just, and they need to be reasonable, but we have to adhere to them. And I think that has been a big part of why a lot of people have, one of the things that becomes a struggle, and I see this a lot, people that have maybe grown for, let's say, 10 years, right? And Tim, you tell me if this resonates with you. These are the ones that come into our office and want to tell us about what they should be doing because they've been doing it for 10 years. But none of it lines up with what the hell the state told your ass to do. Like, it doesn't go like that. And so, you know what I'm saying? Well, I've been growing for 10 years and I've been putting eggshells and boogers in it. No, that's not going to pass testing. You look crazy. You can't do that. Oh, I don't need to do that. I could just put all of the weed in an aluminum foil like I've been doing since the 60s. Look here, Dan Connor, you can't just keep on doing that shit. You have to be able to meet these different rules. You have to have licenses. You have to obtain an attorney. You can't just keep putting the money up under your mattress. Like, there's things that we have to do. And although, and I'm sure Attorney Tim gets this all the time, they come in and they tell them, oh, well, they pinned me down and they took all of my weed. me, well, I mean, you had 5 guns and a bunch of naked ladies in there. You can't just keep running this thing like you Nino Brown and Capone. So we have to create these pathways, but we have to participate within a matter of reason, right? So we have to go in and create real businesses if we want the government to be able to take us as a real industry. Right or wrong, Mr. Tim?
Oh my God! On.
Hurrah! Hurrah! I can't.
You know what, guys? I love everything about it, and it's like I said, legislation and all that good stuff is. And Tim, you know better than I do about Canada and all how it's different. But exactly to your point, is I had somebody knock on my back door, and they grew 4,000 acres of hemp. They had no idea. And keep in mind, in Canada, we have been able to grow industrial hemp since 1998. It wasn't until the bill passed in 2018 that we were able to grow for CBD cultivation. So that's when the game changed. All of these, like to your point, all of these farmers have been doing it exactly to their point. I grow it. It's my area. It's my land. I don't need a lawyer. I don't need to do this. So I heard a very horror story about somebody growing 4,000 acres of hemp, grew it, cultivated. It was beautiful. It was all the good stuff. He had to burn it because there was nowhere to sell it because he didn't have his CTLS license. So in Canada, we use a system that's called CTLS, which is a tracking system, and it's under Health Canada, all the good stuff. But no, Simone, exactly to your point is everybody decided, well, no, we can do this and we're going to do this. And then Tim comes in where he's like, hey, it really sucks that I'm your lawyer, but you legally could not do that. I don't want to be the one to tell you. And then we have Joe who comes on and is like, hey, I really hate to be the one to tell everyone that you couldn't do that. But
yeah, I mean, they're the worst clients. I would rather, and I'm sure Tim says the same thing, I would rather have a client who is new to the industry and I can educate and say, okay, this is what you have to do. There was somebody that's been growing this shit for a long time because they're going to tell you, what, and I say, what makes you think that the government is going to turn your illegal business into a legal business and you not paying no taxes or no fees or nothing? You sound crazy to me. Get out of my office. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. And I know Tim has the same issue. I would sometimes rather work with clients who are new.
Well, let me ask a quick question. I want Thomas's opinion on this because I know you guys, I mean, this is actually a fucking... I love the point that you're making right now, right? Like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and like we're the grassroots guys, so we think we should do it our way. We get the law passed, and it's like Tim's here. Like, obviously, we try to remind people of law today, right?
Interrupt you, Joe. This should actually be a separate segment. Like this.
So we could go on this. We could go on this for another couple hours, and like I want to get.
No, we don't. I gotta go. We ain't standing in no level.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Joe. This is really good. I gotta go too, brother.
No, I agree. 5 more minutes. One last question.
5 more minutes. Go ahead.
We're all talking from this from a legal standpoint. We're talking from this from an insurance standpoint, but we haven't heard the actual business guy standpoint from Thomas. That is who we're all talking about right now, right?
Yeah.
So like, for me, the thing I want to make in all this, we talk about rules and regulations that we're allowed to work within right now, right? I think there's so many weird restrictions on some of the stuff that we're allowed to do right now because of the way we operate. Like I said, you nailed the head on you hit the nail on the head. If everybody complied, if we all did our due diligence, like we approach every other industry in an industry standpoint, right? In any commercialized industry, right? Then we wouldn't have some of these crazy restrictions. We wouldn't have some of these crazy taxes, but a lot of people don't want to play by the rules. So when these states legalize, they look at this as an outline, right? Because what are all these states really trying to fight is the black market, right? So Thomas, I mean, you're a grower. You're the person we're talking about right now. I mean, you work with growers all the time that, do we buck the system? How do we get involved in the system? And I know you probably see many perspectives of it, but what is your perspective of it from the grower standpoint?
So from a grower standpoint, I see any and all ability to cultivate on a commercial basis within the state as beneficial. Mm-hmm. When it comes down to it, there's numerous black market growers and illegal growers in Vermont. I'm sure every single one of us knows some. But when it comes down to it, those are the guys that are also producing some of the best medicine for some of the medical patients in the state too, because the dispensaries can't produce a quality product. So my standpoint is these guys need to suck it up, pay their taxes, and get their asses into the legal market so that they can keep their asses out of jail, because 10 years down the road, they'll still be going to jail if they're doing it on the illegal front.
Right. I mean, you have the opportunities out there, guys. And this is one thing I want to stress. Every opportunity out there is for you. Like we talked about the insurance opportunities. They're out there. We just got to go find them, right? They might not be prevalent and known about in the state that you're in, but you might have an opportunity to get what you need, right? And like we said, they're setting up a structure. It's like, so if you want to open up a restaurant, you can't operate it like you did it in the backyard barbecue, right? There's restrictions, there's licenses, there's things you have to go obtain so you can operate from a legal standpoint. If you want to sell records, it's the same thing. If I want to do a radio show, I have to pay royalties on stuff. If I don't, guess what? My door is going to get kicked in, and I can't go.
A lot of the guys are going to bitch.
I really do got. I'm sorry, Tom. I will see you guys next week. Simone, so nice. Bye,
Tim.
It was a pleasure. You know what? Can you guys make sure that Tim and I get each other's email so that we can talk?
Yes.
And Tim, I want to get you the information. I want to either we will register with Vermont, or we will get you somebody with Vermont to be able to do it. But we will do one of the other, and we will do that this week.
Perfect. I'll be looking forward to it.
You got it. Yep.
Thank you so much. See you guys next week. Have a good one.
Tim, thank you again. Another great week, another great conversation. As always, we love you. Vermont Campus Solutions, Timothy Fair. Find those guys everywhere.
I want one of those chopsticks too. That look great. Have a good one, guys.
Got it,
all right, Tim, we'll talk to you soon. Chopsticks. And again, we have great chopsticks, guys. Again, I want to thank you guys. I know everybody has to go. We way extended the show. It's been an amazing conversation. I really appreciate it.
That means I did a good job if y'all had a long show, huh?
Well, we do a 2-hour show, and we usually have segments.
It's long every time. I'm like 2 hours, Joe. 2 hours. Okay, I'll be here for 2 hours. Then 2.5 hours. Okay, yeah, we're still here. It's all right.
But I did okay, but no, I want to be one of the best. So I was 2.5. I'm so competitive.
I can tell you that you are already one of the best.
Right. No, we made a great show.
Competitive. I'm like, no. But mine was 2.5.
No, actually.
No, but hold on. How many minutes was the last person? How many minutes?
Well, the longest show we've ever had in the Weeds was 4 hours. And we actually did a show at the King Clan's Straight Up Entertainment Studio. We the vice president we know very well of the management side.
That was high as hell to talk for 4 hours.
Well, what happened was it was cool because it was kind of like when the riots were happening and we had all this kind of like social disconnect. You know what I mean? We turned our 2-hour show and then we segmented, and then we just started off with the Wu-Tang side of things, and we talked about social equity. So our show ended, but we kept going. But anyways, we'll sign off now. Simone, thank you very much. It was a great show. I mean, I learned a lot because this is, again, a topic that I don't think a lot of people talk about. Like, obviously, Thomas was saying that, you know, in his area and the people he deal with, a lot of these options and things that are out there are not known about yet. And like you were saying to Tim, a lot of it's brand new.
A lot of them are brand new. So I'm going to make sure that you guys have all of my information. Make sure that you connect me and Tim together. And before, in the next week or so, we'll either get you guys somebody that you can connect with, or we will register ourselves.
Awesome. I so appreciate it. Again, tell everybody where they can find you and reach out to you personally.
So great. So you can find me everything. If you're following me, the Dope Chick, and you want to find out about money, stocks, and weed, which I love, that is everything is Cimone Casson, and that is the website. If you are looking at getting more information about insurance and protection, you can go to our website, which is www.cannascapital.com. And then Cannas Capital, the insurance agency, is going public. We're doing our first initial offering of $1 million under Reg CF. And so you can go to cannascapitalfunds.com, put in your information, and we will send you out newsletters about us going to the public, the over-the-counter offering. And then last but not least, make sure you follow me so you can see my journey as I am creating this local stock exchange, which will be called the Michigan Marijuana Market in Michigan. You will see the Black woman who is bringing money to Michigan.
That's amazing. That's actually something that I'd be interested in figuring out more about.
Cimone Casson. I love everything. My aunt's from Michigan, so I love everything.
I took a nap. I took a nap about a week ago, right? I took off. I took a nap, and my best friend and my mom said, they said, what's wrong? I said, well, hell, I ain't Superwoman all the time. They said, well, goddamn it, we thought you were.
Yeah, right?
I believe it.
Hey, we all have to crash and burn once in a while, right? Thomas.
Look, I slept for 2 days. I was tired. But then, look, I got back up and kicked ass the next morning. Ain't nothing they can do with me.
Yeah. Boundaries, right?
Ain't nothing they can do with me.
I want to give you a huge shout out to Thomas Marcombe, Vermont Grow Coach. Another great segment again this week, as always. And we love having you on the show. Anything you want to talk about really quick on today's show that you want to point out, or what do you got for us, man?
No, I'm ready to tell you that you can find me every week here in this chair, as well as at VermontGrowCoach.com, on Facebook and Instagram at Vermont Grow Coaching, or contact us directly at 802-342-5381. But right now, I'm going to get my butt out of this chair, go take a shower, and go get some shopping done.
I hear you, man. And Coaching Goats. We can't forget Coaching Goats. So.
Oh, yes. Can't forget Coaching Goats. Coaching Goats is the cultivation company under Vermont Grow Coaching, Vermont's first cryogenically cured cannabis. So we're pretty excited about that. We'll be coming out very soon. So stay tuned.
Right, as the laws allow, right?
Right, exactly.
And then also we had our co-special guest today, Danica Dunseith, Can Collective Incorporated out of Stratford, Ontario. Thank you for being on. Tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and check out what you're doing.
Oh my goodness! First and foremost, I'm so grateful for letting me piggyback onto your sweet segment. Cimone, I have to be honest, I got a huge girl crush on you, and I was like, oh man,
my gosh, she's so sweet.
Girl crush on you hard, and I was like, oh my goodness, I have to be on this show. This is incredible. I love
you are amazing.
So I'm CEO and founder of Cannas Collective. You can find us on Facebook and social media at Cannas Collective Inc. We're really just into the collective spirit of what everyone is into. So that's why, like I said, I girl crushed on you. And I think it's really incredible to see what we're doing globally in the US and Canada, and then we're moving forward to breaking all these barriers. Like I was speaking to Joe recently about the fact that criminal seeds are held up at customs and they won't let them out. So I think collectively, all of us coming together and talking about all of our amazing initiatives is really, really important. So I'm grateful for In the Weeds, and I'm grateful for Joe for having us all come together and all that good stuff. So thank you for having me.
We love having you on, and again, thank you for coming on. We appreciate the Canadian outlook. I know when we talk, sometimes it's hard for you because it's hard for us to think about how government could be so supportive of an industry, right? Really, so it creates a unique experience and perspective that I think everybody needs to talk about. And again, we talk about global. Breaking the stigma and legalization, and everywhere we see first country to country is different. We hear things about Israel all the time and where companies' strides are going, or countries, and countries that are legalizing and looking to legalize, like, we're talking about Mexico today. And there's a lot of other countries that are like, the big talk, especially because of the political changeovers and elections and things that are happening in our states, is where a lot of these, countries are going with legalization in these states. We saw 5 states in America recently. But everything from a national level.
Shout out for Nepal, because you're going to have a very exciting guest on your show, Nepal.
Yeah, we have a guest coming on from Nepal here the next week or two. We're going to get that locked down for you guys so you understand what's going on in Nepal, which is going to be a unique situation because they're legalizing as well. And every country has a different approach to it, which is unique, especially when it comes to hemp, medical, and recreational. They all look at it very differently, right? And a lot of states are pro-medical or not necessarily recreational by any means, or countries, right? But anyways, guys, stay tuned for the next couple of weeks. We got a lot of great guests lined up. My dog's here. It's got to go outside, so we're going to bounce out. Again, follow Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio.
My monsters too. Cimone, I'm going to girl stalk you, and we're going to
thank you, Samson, for encouraging Joe to end the show.
That we get that we connect.
Thanks, Thomas, I appreciate your support, being on board.
And we're gonna talk, okay? I love you guys. I'm out of here. Y'all have a good one. I love you like I love myself. Okay.
Thank you,
Oh
Cimone.
my
We'll
goodness,
talk
I
to you
love
soon.
you like you love
Yep.
yourself.
Oh,
Love
love you more.
you. Keep up the fight.
Have
All
a great
guys, again,
night.
thank you for a great show, Thomas.
Bye,
Again, thank
Thomas. You're
you.
amazing.
Thank you.
See you guys later.
Let's all go eat.